But they did what they could over the weekend to make me say, huh, that's interesting. I'm not back on board yet because it's going to take a lot more than 2 really nice games against a quality opponent, not a great one, but a quality opponent, especially a quality pitching staff on the other side. It's going to take more than that for me to buy in. But what they were able to accomplish, I can only speak for myself, over the weekend, was they were able to get me back interested to see, okay, what is it going to look like against the Baltimore Orioles as they come into town? There are no caveats to this series. That's a great baseball team. That's a World Series contending team that is coming into town. And you're going up against some really good pitching this week. You'll go up against one hell of a lineup, and you got Sonny Gray, Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson, the 3 guys that you went out this offseason to be able to acquire, the 3 guys that have been the best starters for you so far this year. They're going to be on the mound for you. You've got your best against their best. Let's see what it looks like. My guess, they win 1 out of 3 in this series. They probably will look overmatched because that's what everybody looks like for the most part against the Baltimore Orioles. But if they're able to continue what we have seen now for the last 7 games or so, all right. It's worth monitoring, and it is something that will get me a little bit excited again, Alex. That's as far as I'm willing to go.
I, for one, had a great weekend. I went on vacation. I played a lot of golf. And, guys, I came back with an optimistic mindset. I'm officially back on board.
No, you're not.
Yeah, you're right. No, I'm not. So I got a good comparison for you for what took place with this Red Sox series. Because, look, I'm not going to crap all over it. Like, you won a series against the Red Sox solely off of your offense, and that was the matchup that we all talked about. Like, man, you're not going to hit these guys, and you found a way to. I don't know if anybody else did this when they were younger, but when I got bad grades in school, which, you know, surprise, surprise, Albert Einstein got bad grades. I used to stick the bad grades down into a pocket of my book bag.
Of course it does.
And my parents wouldn't find it. So they would only see A's and B's, and the D's and F's, which are a lot of them, were in the book bag. And when my parents found it, boy, did they not trust me. So the next couple of months, as I got better grades, I'd show them all to them. And they'd be like, yeah, but where are the bad grades? And I'd be like, what are you talking about? This is it. This is all of it. The Cardinals are the bad grades stuffed down into the bag. So what just happened was I saw this, and I said, good. This is awesome. Where'd you stuff the D's and F's?
Because, Sunday. Yeah, Sunday. Yeah. The answer is in Sunday's lineup.
Or it's the Orioles and the Cubs game. Like, you stuffed the bad grades down deep into that bag because you don't want me to see it.
You're just waiting for the inevitable. And over the last 2 seasons, that's what it's been. It feels like the bad is just off in the horizon. Even when you're experiencing the good, and there was plenty of it this weekend, dude. For the vast majority of that series against the Boston Red Sox, they played good and fun baseball. They played fun ball on Friday and Saturday. Dude, this team looks like it's having so much fun when they're hitting homers. It's a different vibe around the club. But for most of the season, they look completely dormant because they're not hitting.
And it's hard to crap on them after you showcased offense in a different light than what you did against the Angels, but I'm still waiting to find those D's and F's in the book bag. And that's what this Baltimore Orioles series and the Chicago Cubs series is going to be. Am I believing in this team? Absolutely not. I'll be a pessimistic Patty for the next couple of days, but here's the thing. You've given me an opportunity. You've opened the door for me to look at what you just did against the Red Sox, and you won a series, albeit you didn't really do it with your offense against the Angels. Man, if you can take 2 of 3 against the Orioles and take 2 of 3 against the Cubs, welcome to me being back to believing, yes, the Cardinals are coming, the Cardinals are coming. But you need to do it against these competitive teams. You just did it against the Red Sox, although they're falling apart pretty quickly. You've got 2 more series to where you can prove to me that what took place in the first month and a half was a fluke, and now you're back to who we thought you were.
I also don't think we need to place caveats on what the offense did on Friday and Saturday. You did that against good pitchers.
Yeah.
You did it against good starters. And yesterday, I understand, like, let's set that aside. It's hard to do because it's what you've experienced for the majority of the season.
Getaway day, man.
Yeah, they didn't have their A lineup out there, to say the least.
It's also Adam Wainwright puzzle day, too, the giveaways at the ballpark, which, no surprise, blow up pitching, right?
Was he in attendance? We could have used his arm.
I did. I felt like what we saw on Friday and Saturday is what we talked about on Friday, T-Bone. The left-handed bats started to come through. Paul Goldschmidt, who you said, hey, I feel like maybe there's going to be some signs of things clicking into place for Goldie. And we saw that a bit over the weekend as well. He's been really good in his last 10 games now. Cardinals hitters, OPS, in their 7-game stretch in which they're 5-2. Burleson, OPS over 1,300. Nootbaar over 1,000. Donovan just about 1,000. Gorman almost 1,000. Goldie 955. All right. Wynn 900, Herrera 855, Arenado 768. Everybody other than Herrera and Arenado in that list that I just named, slugging percentage of at least 500 in this 7-game stretch. We've talked about it all year long, dude. They just have to hit for some power. If they can start putting power on the table, all right, now we're talking about a team that can at least get back into the wild card race. I'm not telling you got to think they're a great baseball team. I'm not sure they're ever going to be that. But you can get yourself back into this thing if you start hitting for power. And finally, over the weekend, we saw some of that.
Yeah, and that's where I am, is if they start to slug, you're going to see how they envision the offense. Whether it's the left-handed bats or the right-handed bats that do it, they just need somebody to start hitting for power, because you saw how hard it is. Even though they beat the crap out of the Angels in those 2 games, you saw how hard it is to go station to station to station and score a bunch of runs. You need the other team to gift you some of them, which we saw in that Angel series. They didn't do that against Boston. They took advantage of Boston when they were leaving pitches in the zone, and they were punishing them. So, yeah, I'm not buying into what we saw from the St. Louis Cardinals, but hey, I thought they were a dead bird, okay? I thought they were a dead bird, and now I saw it. Yeah, and now I saw it move, okay? I saw the bird move. I'm willing to look at it and say, okay, this thing might be alive still. And it comes down to what you guys have said. It comes down to this Baltimore and this Cubs series at home, because even if you take 2 or 3 from Baltimore and 2 or 3 against the Cubs, you know what you are? You're still a below 500 team.
The problem is if you pick up that dead bird and thinking it's alive and it's still dead, now you got bird flu.
Only 3 games back.
Brutal.
Don't want to touch it until after.
Stop I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear
Get the
about
hell out of here.
and a wild
Yeah.
card standings.
Now you got to jump
8 teams or something like that.
Padres, the Giants, the Diamondbacks, the Pirates, the Mets, and the Nationals to be able to get into that spot. But only 3 games back.
Which, like, 3 of those teams you haven't been able to beat yet this season, but it's fine.
I mean, you were fine against the Padres. You did all right against the Diamondbacks.
They took 2 or 3 from San Diego, right?
You did okay against the Mets.
We haven't beaten the Mets.
Well,
I mean, literally at all.
And,
you know.
1 series against the Padres. I'd say that was a fluke.
Are you
Schilt
assuming
didn't
we were
get
going to
warmed
win
up.
that rain out game?
Yeah, I think it would have
Smart.
been fine.
That's smart.
You won 2 out of 3 against the Mets.
Let's see what they look like
What?
against the.
Oh, in New York?
Yeah.
We've been to New York? Man,
boy.
show you how much I
was
like
gonna say,
this
I
team.
vaguely
blocked out.
remember them playing well against the Mets, but maybe I'm
Getting beat
misreading
at home.
that.
I blocked out that series.
They ended up losing the 2 at home, but
That's the one I remember.
won 2 of 5, you're right around 500.
Also, why the hell can't this
Would have
team?
won the postponed game, and so when they do that, they'll be 500
Why
against
does this team always just give up on the 3rd game of a series?
It's not great,
They're
man.
like 0-6 in like opportunities to sweep this season.
Yeah, they're the worst team in Major League Baseball on
funny thing is,
Sundays.
it's like-
every Sunday, we're like, they're fixed. And then they go play the baseball game. I was like,
Ollie gets 2 of 3, and he's like, nah, we're good.
And the part that's frustrating about it, because typically I have no issue with the whole getaway day lineup. A, they weren't getting away to anywhere. And
they
B,
knew
they're
they
off
weren't winning
on
that
Thursday.
game yesterday, dude.
What?
They knew they weren't winning that game yesterday. You had
That's
Matthew
fair.
Liberatore on the mound, and you had a shot
Can we
bullpen.
at least give ourselves a chance by putting out
Brandon
giving yourself a chance on
lineup?
Monday.
Brandon
That was
Crawford.
their goal yesterday was to win today.
Well,
That was the goal. Hey, man, listen, when you put out that lineup and you put out that starting pitcher, your goal yesterday was to win today. It was about, hey, don't screw up what we've got going right now.
we should
Let's
fire
see
the
what it looks
manager
like
for
on
that
Monday.
kind of attitude.
I mean, it's not his fault that Matthew Liberatore was in the rotation.
Well, it's his fault for writing that crappy lineup I saw.
Yeah, well,
No, Mo did that.
If you give me that starter and you give me what I was going to put out there yesterday pitching-wise,
You give
I would put
me-
out a crap lineup as well.
You give
I would also
me-
say, you know what, let's concede
Maybe
this
you should
one.
try
we'll get
and
it
show
tomorrow.
faith into your players, like Tyler
seriously.
O'Neill is having success elsewhere
I would
right
have gone
now.
with an opener yesterday, so we could have won that damn
Maybe if the
baseball
manager
game.
shows a little more faith in his players, you'd have some success.
We're going to get to, you were about to say have some
I can't reference 2 former managers or 2 managers that their sex life on the radio.
All right,
Only
Mark
Shield.
DeRosa coming up in about 5 minutes or so. But before we get to him,
Scratch and claw, baby.
City Connect jerseys announced earlier today. I'm supporting them with my The Lou shirt.
I'm supporting them by wearing a different color.
Are you did you realize that you were doing that?
What'd you think? I kind of liked them. I saw the leak over the weekend. I was like, they're fine. They're what you'd expect out of the Cardinals. It's, in the words of Josh Innes, it's missionary. It's fine. I'm not sure that they're like overwhelmingly great, but I think you can go one of 2 lanes with the City Connects. I loved the Angels City Connects jerseys. They're just like an alternate. Like, that's really all they are. They look like they could be any other alternate jersey. That's kind of how I feel about the Cardinals. I think they did a pretty good job. I don't like the hat. That's my big problem. I don't like the hat.
I'm with you there.
I think the jerseys are good. I don't like the hat.
Yeah.
Too much red.
I mean, I wasn't really like, oh my gosh, that jersey's amazing, but I didn't think it was awful. Like, you look at some of them and you're like, ooh, God. Like, who was the San Diego Padres one? That looked like somebody vomited on a jersey.
Guess
And
who
like, hey,
likes
this
that
is
one?
fun.
I like the Padres.
Of course you do.
Are you talking about their neon?
Yeah, the City
jerseys?
Connect one. Those are awful.
You don't like those?
No.
Terrible.
Okay,
Miami
well, that's
one?
ridiculous.
Miami is awful.
Yeah, agreed.
Miami's was awful. So, like, you weren't that bad.
this too.
Jeez. So it makes sense why I'm not as on board with this one like BK is. Here's the thing. It's tough because when your original jersey is so awesome, you can't outdo that. So that's why it's like, meh, okay, fine. Like, you just put the arch and the words "the Lou" on it and said, hey, it's our new jerseys.
Yeah.
It's an alternate.
And hid the arch.
Also, I will say
And
they've
hit the
done a
arch.
good job with the rollout. Like the Nelly video, I don't know if you guys watched it earlier today. It was good. They did a good job with it. So
Sure they did.
Should have had John Hamm.
He's a traitor. He was at the Rangers game repping Rangers
Well, he's got to
gear.
root for somebody.
Nah, traitor. Get out of here.
apparently he was in town this weekend. I saw a picture of him at what
Slow.
was it?
Stop stalking John Hamm, you
He was at
creep.
Napoli.
What?
That's not in St. Louis, man.
No, it's a
It's
restaurant.
Italy.
It's Italy.
It's a never mind. He's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm
T-Bone.
Brandon
Got
Conley. In
him.
15 minutes, we're getting to the news of the day in the NHL. Craig Berube, the new head coach in Toronto. Could he be taking a blue with him to the Maple Leafs? We'll
Scott
talk about that
Perunovich?
coming up in about 15 minutes or so. But coming up next, Mark DeRosa, former major leaguer, now an analyst on MLB Network. We're going to get his thoughts on the St. Louis Cardinals, whether he believes they have a little bit of a run in them. Mark DeRosa next year on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Happy to go out to the 101 ESPN hotline to talk a little Cardinals baseball with Mark DeRosa, former major leaguer, now an analyst for MLB Network. You can follow him on Twitter at MarkDero7. Mark, we appreciate the time as always, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
We're doing a little better because the Cardinals are playing some better ball over their last 7 games or so. 5-2 in their last 7 games. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it looks better to the naked eye. Mark, what are you seeing from the Cardinals lately that is different than what they were previously?
Goldie's starting to catch fire. Brendan Donovan, a guy you guys rely on, starting to swing the bat. Nootbaar hit a ball 9 miles yesterday. Yeah, I mean, bottom line is, I think Mo, when he went out and addressed the rotation, he was looking for innings and he was looking for guys to kind of bridge to his veteran-laden guys that could get him to his bullpen. But I think he was expecting his lineup to bang a little bit bigger than it's done up until this point. I mean, Nolan's average looks decent, but he hasn't slugged the way he's capable of slugging. So you send Jordan Walker down to the minor leagues. Nolan Gorman got off to a slow start. So I think when you it all kind of compounded. The only thing that was really working was Sonny started off the season on the IL, but then he came back like a house of fire. Outside of that, there was really nothing to kind of grasp onto. So it couldn't have gone any worse in the beginning. So they had to start to slowly come out of this.
So it does at least seem like that they're doing that right now, Mark, on the offensive side. When you're that low as a group of batters, is this the jumping off point, and how much or how important is it to capitalize on it this next series?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the track record of a lot of the guys in this lineup speak volumes. I mean, 2022 NL MVP, it's not like it was 7-8 years ago. I got to believe Goldie, when the dust settles, maybe he doesn't have an MVP type season, but I think his numbers are going to be where they normally are. Nolan, hopefully he gets the power cord going and can drive some balls out of the yard for you. But up and down the lineup, I just think there's got to be – they just put so much pressure. It felt like they put a ton of pressure on a pitching staff that already was going to have pressure on it. It's not swing and miss stuff. But you're getting what you expected out of Kyle Gibson. You're getting what you expected out of Lance Lynn. I mean, it's not like these guys were going to come in and contend for Cy Youngs and punch a bunch of tickets. They were going to kind of give you some depth, give you some veteran presence, give you some length, give you some certainty in the starting rotation, and then give it to a bullpen with Helsley as the closer and lock it down. I just think the offense kind of exposed that early on.
Mark, you've been up close in person with Arenado and Goldie. You saw them at the World Baseball Classic. You've seen how these guys work, and they're tireless on the field. Goldie's out there 5 hours before a baseball game as he's going through these struggles right now, trying to find his swing. You also break this stuff down as well as, in my opinion, anybody in the business. What are you seeing from them specifically? What has gone wrong with their swing so far this year in your mind?
Getting to know both of them, I think Nolan at times grinds so hard, but I think that's what makes him great, right? Like he is constantly tinkering, constantly adjusting to try and find a minute margin of success. Where once I found what worked for me, I was just going to do that until I died. So I think sometimes that can work against him. Watching him work, I mean, he just worked so hard when I was around him. He was searching for perfection, and I think it's an imperfect game. But again, here's a Platinum Glove winner that's going to be in Cooperstown. So it's always worked for him. I expect him to start hitting some bombs. As far as Goldie's concerned, he just kind of got in a rut. I don't know if he tried to change or tinker with his swing a little bit in the offseason. I was seeing some video of him trying to go to some different places to kind of manipulate his swing a little bit different. I've always known Paulie to be kind of a stiff action guy in the box that got the front foot down and took his hands to the baseball and just had massive power from a very easy move. I always kind of assert him to, if you flipped Freddie Freeman around, a guy that's looking to drive the ball up the middle the other way on a consistent basis. What it appeared to me is that he was just got disconnected. His lower half, it looked like his rear end was getting pulled in the third base dugout. He just had no base from the waist down. It just looked like he just wasn't comfortable base-wise. And when you're taking your lower half out of it as quickly as he does. He's not a kind of a rhythm and timing type hitter that's going to toe tap or leg kick or dive into the baseball. I trust my lower half is in a good foundation, and I'm strong enough with my hands to drive it all over the lot. The only problem, it appeared to me, is that the lower half was not – he didn't have a good foundation in his lower half, and it was leaving kind of him waving at some pitches he's never waved at before.
Mark, we've had this discussion a lot on our show, especially with the slow start offensively at the beginning of the season, in terms of the impact of a hitting coach when your entire roster is going through ruts like the Cardinals were going through. And your time in Major League Baseball, how impactful for guys that are going through slumps are hitting coaches?
Well, I owe a lot of my career to one hitting coach in Texas. When I got there, Rudy Jaramillo, he kind of pulled me aside and said, "Hey, are you happy with the way your career is going?" I said, "Absolutely not. I think there's more in the tank." He goes, "Are you ready to are you willing to risk it all to make wholesale changes?" And at that point, I was. So when I think of hitting coaches, I kind of give them three things what make a good hitting coach, because they take way too much blame. Okay. So my three things for them is they got to stay positive. I don't want to hear how'd you miss the 2-0 and how'd you pop it up, because if I looked at the back of their baseball card, if they played, I guarantee they did the same thing at some point. So that's number one. Don't forget how hard it is, and always stay positive. Number two, are you available? Are you a cage rat? Because you got a couple guys on that team, I'm sure a majority of them, that want to live and breathe in that cage to figure it out, going to hit to their hands bleed. And number three, you got to get me out of a slump quicker than I can get myself out of one. So I've always been a big video guy. I've always been a big count leverage, guessing pitches, kind of eliminating certain sides of the field, just, doing anything I could to try and kind of recalibrate it. And I kind of saw Goldie doing that in Anaheim the other day. He got a 2-0 kind of cookie from, I believe it was Soriano, and he shot it through the 4-3 hole, the right side. Now, if he's going clean and it's the middle of August, that ball's getting put in the rocks. But he didn't feel good, so he's like, all right, how do I get my timing back? Let me give to get a little bit here. Let me shoot something up the middle the other way, take my knock, and start to build from there. And that's kind of what I've seen so far.
Mark, I want to get a little big picture with you because Cardinals fans are frustrated, as you can probably imagine. You know this fan base. You know how they place value on contending for championships, not just going out there and getting to the playoffs, but getting through them. And that hasn't happened now for more than a decade. I'm curious, when you look at where the Cardinals are at, last year being what it was, and then this year not off to the start that anybody was hoping for, what's gone wrong in your mind for the way that the team is built, the process of where they're at right now? What do you think has gone wrong for the Cardinals over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it doesn't help that every guy that seems to walk out the door, whether it's right or wrong, like I'll be honest with you, Randy Arozarena films Mike Schilt, I'm probably letting him go as well. So I understand certain moves that they made, but I think it compounds on it when you see a lot of guys walk out the door that have gone on to have big-time success. The Adolis Garcias of the world. You're seeing Tyler O'Neill came back. He got a knock in every game, took Liberatore 500 feet yesterday. So, that's where the fans start to, hey, why are these guys getting better when they're leaving here? That's number one. And number two, I think a lot of it, when I watch the Cardinals, I see a lot of guys that have the hit tool. But do you have dynamic athleticism? Can you play D? I'm into what Mason Wynn's doing. I mean, he certainly looks like a dynamic player and is only going to get better, and I'm sure having Crawford there is only going to help him. But the expectations you can't put it on Mason Wynn. It's got to be a Nolan and Goldie situation right now. But when I look at Jordan Walker, where are we playing him? Because we got to eventually get the bat in there. Nolan Gorman, there's no way he loves playing second base. He'll tell you that till he's blue in the face, but he didn't grow up playing that position. So I see a lot of guys with the hit tool that I don't know if they're playing out of position. There's really no position for them to play, but how do we just build more of a team where everybody knows their role instead of trying to put 9 guys in the lineup that mash.
I want to go back to your first thing that you said there, Mark, and ask a follow-up on that. What's your read on why guys are going elsewhere and having so much success? Do you have a hypothesis on that?
That's tough for me to – that's tough for me. For me, like when I was with the Atlanta Braves, I had learned so much, and I was so blessed to come up with them. But I also understood that at no point did Bobby Cox think I was an everyday player. So the grass isn't always greener for everyone, but you do get a fresh start and the ability to change a narrative. So the best thing that ever happened to me was being drafted by the Braves and learning how to win and the expectation of winning. But the next best thing was to get the heck out of there, because you get labeled. So for whatever reason, I don't know if Mo labeled certain guys, certain players or what have you, but they get a new lease on life where they get to go into a spring training and maybe get unlocked by a certain coach. And I don't go to Texas in 2005. I was probably a journeyman utility guy for the next 2 or 3 years, and then I'm home. And I believe there was more in the tank. I wasn't going to change the narrative in Atlanta. I took a minor league deal instead of a major league deal to go find the best hitting coach that I knew was out there, and he was in Texas, and I gave my soul to him, and it worked. So everybody's got a different story on that as to why they get better.
Mark, final question from me, and kind of a generic one, but now that we've seen about a month and a half of the season for the Cardinals, do you think that they are a playoff team?
They certainly could sneak in a wild card, but do I see them doing any damage? My answer would be no.
Hey, Mark, we appreciate
Unless Nolan and Goldie get crazy going and can cover up some of the flaws.
That's basically what we've been saying here, is like it's going to come down to those two guys as to whether or not they're going to be able to get this thing back on track. Hey, Mark, we appreciate the time as always, man. Thanks so much for hopping on with us. People can watch you on MLB Central. We appreciate you giving us a little bit of time this morning here on BK and Ferrario.
No problem, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Mark.
That's Mark DeRosa joining us here on 101 ESPN. Appreciate his time as always. Former Major League player, current MLB analyst for MLB Network. T-Bone, do you have that read? I don't have it in front of me in terms of where. I know MLB Central is where you can go to watch him, but we got to say something for MLB Network here.
Yeah, you can check out Mark DeRosa and his crew on MLB Central weekdays at 8 a.m. Central on MLB Network.
There you go. They actually, in all seriousness, do an unbelievable job. I think it's the best baseball show going. They break things down in a way that makes you smarter as a baseball fan. They have a lot of fun on that show. I think they do a really, really good job over on MLB Central.
That man's going to be a manager soon. I can just listening to him talk. If he wants to be, he is going to be a manager.
So I did want to get back to what he said about the roles thing. So I asked him the question on, hey, what do you think has gone wrong for the Cardinals over the past couple of seasons? He said the thing that we've all said, which is guys going elsewhere and having success is weird, and he doesn't totally understand why. He did mention the roles thing. There's no reason for me to push back on it while we've got him for, we had another 3 minutes to talk about it. We didn't have enough time to do this. I disagree with him there. I think the Cardinals have done that this year. I think the reason why the Cardinals are failing this year has nothing to do with their roles. I think they've done a really good job, Alex, of finding everyday spots for people. Guys know where they're playing every day now. Hey, Brendan Donovan, you're an everyday outfielder for us right now. And then occasionally you're going to drop down to second base when Nolan Gorman has a day off. Hey, Alec Burleson, you're going to be a guy that's playing either in corner outfield, corner infield in terms of first base, or DH. Everybody else has their spot. Newt, everyday outfielder for us. Siani, everyday center fielder for us. Every day at shortstop, we've got the same guy unless like once a week now that he's not dealing with the back issues. Mason Wynn's going to get a day off. But guys know their roles now. I don't think that's a fair critique of the 2024 Cardinals. I think it was a fair critique, even though I pushed back against it, about the 2023 Cardinals, Alex.
Yeah, I can see where he's coming from.
For this team?
Not for this team, but for players that are having success elsewhere. And I think it's not so much in terms of labeling them as like a position and being outside of I think it's in terms of you're labeling these players as not an everyday starter for the Cardinals. That's at least was my generic takeaway from what he had said.
I think I'm missing...
Like he said, like sometimes you get into the point he made the comparison to himself where he was labeled as not an everyday player.
I was talking about the roles thing that he was talking about. He was talking about the current Cardinals, why they're struggling, and he thought like Jordan Walker needs to be in a specific role. Nolan Gorman needs to be in a specific role.
Oh, yeah, that one I just don't. I don't agree with on that either. I thought you were meaning like big picture as to why players are going elsewhere to have success. That one I do agree with. I think there has just been
Agreed.
labeling of like, no, he's not going to be an everyday player for us and we need to move on. But yeah, in terms of this current roster, that if he would have said that last season at this time, I would have agreed with him.
100%.
But now everybody is in their position and you're not moving away from that. And whether you like being a second baseman or not, Nolan Gorman, that's your position on this team.
Yeah, and long term, that's probably your position. Like in Major League Baseball now,
He's too far removed from you doing third
he's
base.
also pretty good at it.
Yeah.
Like, he has some mental lapses lately that he's got to get figured out. Like you just can't fall asleep on the field. He almost, that throw, I think it was Burleson. No, it was Donovan that made it into the infield on a single that the guy was trying to stretch out into a double. It was there plenty in time to be able to tag the guy out, and he barely got it there because he had fallen asleep and I don't think realized that the guy was going to be coming into second. But that's the kind of stuff that he's got to get figured out. I think otherwise, though, Nolan Gorman's been pretty good defensively for you this year. And Jordan Walker, I think it's unfair to say that he's not an outfielder. I think he was fine in the outfield this season. His problem is he couldn't hit this year. But those would be the two things that I would push back against. Otherwise, I thought everything he said there made a lot of sense. And it's about them being able to get back on track if Goldie and Arenado are the guys that you expect them to be. If you missed any of our conversation with Mark DeRosa, check that out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you can go to find it. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
In 15 minutes, we'll get into questions and answers. Katie Wu joins us at 12 o'clock, but coming up next, we got to talk about Craig Berube, who is the new head coach in Toronto. How do we feel about the fit with Berube in Toronto? And is he going to be looking to bring one of the current Blues with him to Toronto? We'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN.
Terry Henderson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals lose to the Red Sox yesterday 11-3. They are back in action tonight as they start a 3-game set with the Baltimore Orioles. 6:45 will be first pitch, and Sonny Gray will be on the mound for St. Louis. This Sports Update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, so the Craig Berube sweepstakes have officially come to an end. He's going to be the next head coach in Toronto with the Maple Leafs. Alex, how do you think he's going to fare there? How do you feel about the fit?
If you said that Berube is going to be the coach with this exact same roster next season, I think you're probably talking about another first-round exit in the playoffs. And I don't think that has anything to do with Berube. I think it's roster construction. But I don't anticipate the same roster to be there. If I was Berube, which I'm not, I would have gone with Winnipeg. I think Winnipeg was your best opportunity to win a Stanley Cup right away because the roster was in place. Toronto still doesn't have goaltending. They still don't have defense. And how did Craig Berube have success in St. Louis? Goaltending and defense. And what happened to the team and Berube's coaching when those disappeared from the Blues? He started to falter. Now, is he going to get the best out of the ego in that locker room with Matthews and Marner and Nylander and Tavares? Absolutely, because he's a motivator, and I think players love playing for him. I still don't think that roster is a winning roster, though, for Craig Berube. So, unfortunately, unless they make significant changes, I think you're still going to be talking about the little brother in their division when it comes to playoff time.
That's how I feel as well. I don't think that the Maple Leafs lost because of their coach. And I know that nobody likes Sheldon Keefe. That's fine.
Well, some of us do.
I understand that. He didn't do himself any favors with the way that he approached things at times with the media. That being said, man, this team doesn't have defense and it doesn't have goaltending. Well, what do you need to do? What do you need to have in order to win in the postseason? We're seeing it with all of the teams that remain. You got to have defense, specifically big guys and tree trunks that are on your defensive core. And you need excellent goaltending. Man, the Maple Leafs haven't had that in 40 years. So at a certain point in time, that's what's going to make them into the contender that they want to be. They've got to overhaul the defensive court, and they've got to overhaul their goalies. Now, Joseph Holl, maybe he becomes something for him. He looked good in a very brief sample size in this year's postseason. I don't think you can totally rely on that. So it begs the question, what are they going to do to be able to get that goaltending? And T-Bone, last Friday, Jamie Rivers was on the fast lane. He brought up what I thought to be a really interesting question. Do you consider taking a call from Toronto for Benner? Here's Jamie Rivers on the fast lane talking about the Maple Leafs targeting Jordan Binnington from the St. Louis Blues potentially this offseason.
One thing I would be on the lookout for, and I hope it doesn't happen, but one thing I would be on the lookout for is for the Toronto Maple Leafs to make a massive push to acquire Jordan Binnington.
Yeah, I don't like that.
You're gonna
Chase yourself. Yeah, I don't like that at all.
If the Blues are looking to get a player, I'm sure that
Austin Matthews.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I'm just telling you guys, the Maple Leafs need a goalie desperately. Craig Berube absolutely loves Jordan Binnington. Just telling you.
It's going to hurt Toronto. Yeah, it will. What are you willing to give up? Our guy has a Stanley Cup win.
They'd probably say we're willing to give up William Nylander or Mitch Marner.
Okay.
And what else?
So it's a really interesting hypothetical, man. I don't know if the Blues would even answer the call. I don't know. Because this is, you can make an argument. Jordan Binnington is their franchise player, the number one guy on the roster that you don't want to trade. Not because he's the guy you're building around the most. That's Robert Thomas. But because, man, what he's done for you, what he means to the organization, what he represents, the mentality that he has, the leadership that he's shown, especially over the last year, it's really hard to give that guy up. And if you're going to win at a meaningful level in the next couple of years, that guy's got to be here, you'd think. But we don't know if they're going to win at a meaningful level in the next couple of years. And so it presents the question of, would you do it? Would you consider it, Alex? Do you answer the phone and say, here's what it would take for you to get Jordan Binnington? And if the Toronto Maple Leafs say, okay, do you actually pull the trigger and consider making such a deal? Is that something you would even consider, Alex?
I absolutely answer the phone call. Because, look, if you're desperate for a goaltender, that means you're going to have to give up probably more than you want because you want a goalie. The only way that I'm even going to realistically listen is if it's Mitch Marner plus. I don't think they're going to trade William Nylander. At least the press conference, both Brad Treliving and Brendan Shanahan made it pretty clear that Austin Matthews and William Nylander are their guys they're building around, and you just signed one to a contract extension. But what would the Blues need in return? First of all, you'd need a superstar player, but I think you have to fill other areas. You need depth, which to me would be like, sure, throw in a Nick Robertson. You would need defense, throw in your best defensive prospect, and you're probably throwing in a first-round pick for this. Because why? You're desperate for a goaltender. It's so hard to sit here and act like I would pull the trigger on it. Absolutely no question, because I just think Jordan Binnington is the bloodline of the Blues right now. Like, we could talk about Thomas, we could talk about Kyrou and Parayko. This team is picking top 5 without Jordan Binnington this season. And for those that think Joel Hofer's ready to be a number 1 goaltender, I don't. Joel Hofer looked fine for half of the season, half of the time he was playing. Now, plan on playing him 50-plus games. I don't know if you're getting the same results from this. But I also look at the timeline for the Blues. If you don't think you're competing within the next 2 to 3 years, Jordan Binnington might be outside of that window to help you win a Stanley Cup. And guess what you don't get in return for a goaltender that isn't viewed as a Stanley Cup winning goaltender? You don't get much.
And that's why somebody on the text line said, what about Hofer? Yeah, no, you're not getting that.
Yeah, you're not getting that for Hofer because
Hofer's
nobody
not
knows.
even a conversation.
Yeah.
If they're trading Marner, it's specifically for Benner. It's for Jussi Saros. It's for Markstrom. Like, they're getting what they believe to be a championship caliber goalie. And we have no idea if Hofer's going to be that. And that's what's so risky if you're the Blues, is that you're now relying on Hofer. Hofer has to be capital T, capital G, the guy for you.
Yeah.
And if he's not, well, now you find yourself in the spot that the Toronto Maple Leafs have been in. But without Austin Matthews.
Yeah, well, and what you do, if you do pull the trigger on that trade, so like hypothetically here, Mitch Marner, Nick Robertson, and they've got this young defensive top prospect, this
No,
Topi.
he's 5'10".
Understandable. That's fine if that's how you feel.
Size matters,
I'm telling you, this is their number 1 prospect, and he's viewed as a really good defenseman. He's 22 years old. What you're doing is you're resetting the clock. You're making sure that everyone is around the same time frame to compete. Thomas is 24. 25 years old by the start of the season. Marner's 27. You've got the Kyrou. You've got these players that are all going to be around the same time frame. And the other factor into this is if you're not willing to pull the trigger, then Nashville will. Because I seriously would consider Nashville Predators putting Jussi Saros on the trade block and get a Mitch Marner in return. And now you're jockeying in the Central Division. I don't think I would do it. I really think that I would just keep with Jordan Binnington because he gives me my best shot to win, and I think he's a good player to have with Joel Hofer. But, man, if you made that offer really good, it would be very tough to say no to.
So the other thing is, if you're going to consider trading Benner at any point, now's the time to do it.
Yeah, you can't wait another year.
He's 30 years old. He's coming off of, I think you can make an argument given the fact that he started 55 games and it was the whole season was great and what was the context of what was happening around him. I think you can make an argument this was actually his most impressive season.
Yeah, he should have been top 3 Vezina. He should not have been outside and Bobrovsky should have been in it.
His most impressive work came in 2019 when he was called up midway through the year and then, of course, goes on the run to the Cup. But if you're just looking at the entirety of what's around him, I think this might have been his most impressive year yet. Mm-hmm. So if I'm another team, I want him now because I'm capitalizing on him being on a heater, potentially, and really being in the prime of his career for the next couple of seasons. If you're the Blues, he's about to be 31 years old. And now you could start to see the downward spiral of his career. Doesn't mean he's going to be bad immediately, but 3 years from now, what is he? Is he the same guy that he is today when you're trying to contend, or did you go through your retool while he was at his elite level, and then by the time that you're back into your contention window, it's too late for him? That is a real concern that the Blues absolutely have to take into account. And if you're able to get an elite level player that is on the exact same timeline as Robert Thomas, a guy that played with Robert Thomas in juniors and Mitch Marner, a player that is an elite defensive player, can get you 30 plus goals a season, get you 90 points per season. If that is the guy that you're trading him for, at least as the main piece in this, dude, it's hard to turn that down. It's really hard to turn that down if that is a legitimate offer that is on the table.
You would be banking. And by the way, a couple of people on our YouTube feed are saying like, oh, Marner's going to test free agent. You don't make this trade unless Marner signs on the dotted lines and signs a contract extension. It's the only way it's taking place.
Clause, so he has to accept the deal here too. And I'm betting you he's not accepting this deal without a deal done.
Yeah, but you are setting yourself up for the next, I would say, probably 6-7 years, because that's the length of Robert Thomas's contract, and I would imagine Marner's going to sign a long-term one, of Jake Neighbors, Robert Thomas, and Mitch Marner as your top line. And I think for a lot of people, that's the ideal top line that you've been searching for a very long time. That's what the hope was with the Matthew Tkachuk. Now, Marner's not Matthew Tkachuk, but Marner's a 100-point player. He's a Selke Trophy candidate. And the only way you're doing this is if you better be damn sure that Joel Hofer is a good goaltender.
Absolutely.
Because if he's not, if you bank on the wrong horse here and your minor leagues, the Zarenko and Colton Ellis don't turn out to be what you're searching for, then you're going to be doing what you've been doing for the previous 20 years before Jordan Binnington was brought up, since Grant Fuhrer, of looking for a number one goaltender. But you got to understand that if you're making this trade, you are going to be bad next season because your goaltending isn't going to be great and your defense hasn't been updated.
He's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley. By the way, from the 314, guys, you getting ready to talk more about these hypothetical trades again? Are you really that low on content? No, we got plenty of stuff to talk about today. But when Jamie Rivers said that on the Fast Lane on Friday, I couldn't avoid it. That's something that we absolutely have to discuss because Jamie brought it up, and Jamie knows things. I don't know if Toronto is actually going to be able to pull the trigger or not. I guarantee you they're making a call. Why wouldn't you? I just hired the Stanley Cup winning coach from St. Louis who had this guy as his goalie while he was here winning a cup in St. Louis. He loves Jordan Binnington. So, of course, you're going to make that call. And, oh, by the way, the single biggest remaining question mark for the Maple Leafs right now is in net. So, yeah, we got to talk about it and whether or not we would consider it from our perspective. Toronto wants him.
Yeah.
And it's about what they would be willing to offer to get that done.
Berube doesn't take that job unless the understanding was you were fixing this roster. That's the only way Craig Berube took that job. So, yeah, that's not really a hypothetical. It's something that might actually be thrown out there by one of the insiders before the draft.
He's Alex. That's T-Bone on BK. Coming up next, the questions and answers here on 101 ESPN.
Darren from Rhino Shield sent me a message early this morning updating me on a couple of other jobs that his team is going to be taking care of. Hindu Temple of St. Louis, for the second project they've reached out to Rhino Shield for. It's currently being taken care of. And CMC Electric in Maryville, Illinois, they are purchasing a new building, and they called Rhino Shield to give it the update that it needs. If you're somebody that has a business and their exterior looks worn down, paint chipping off, you've got water stains on the side, then it's time to give it a facelift. And that's why you need to call Rhino Shield. Sure, you can do it yourself. Buy the paint from the hardware store. But you're going to be doing it again next year and the year after and the year after, and that is going to add up to repaint the exterior. But if you use Rhino Shield, it's not just paint that you're using. It's a 2 to 3 coating ceramic process that sticks 8 to 10 times thicker than any type of paint you're going to buy. Rhino Shield is backed by a 25-year transferable warranty. You can set it and forget it with Rhino Shield's work. So give Darren a call today. Tell him Alex Ferrario sent you to update the exterior of your home, your business, whatever it might be. 877-25-RHINO, 877-25RHINO.com.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, we'll do quick hitters, or questions and answers, quick hitter style here today from the 314. Guys, how much longer do you think Crawford will remain on the roster for the St. Louis Cardinals? I think until you see Tommy Edman return.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, that's my guess because he can play shortstop.
If you bring in Marner, do you think that the Blues would have to trade Kyrou and or Buchnevich? My guess is they would have to trade Buchnevich in that scenario. Alex, where do you stand on
You got to trade one of them because Marner's going to command $11+ million, so you got to move one of them. I would probably lean more towards trading Buch because Kyrou's more in the same time frame.
Is there any scenario where you think Goldie could get a qualifying offer this offseason? T-Bone, do you think there's any scenario where that would make sense for the Cardinals?
No, I can't see a scenario where he gets a qualifying offer or he's wearing the birds on the bat next year.
Yeah, I'd be surprised. What if he goes on a tear from here?
Don't think it matters.
Maybe then he gets the qualifying offer.
I think in that scenario, they would just come to a deal with him.
Yeah.
On like a 2-year, $30 million deal instead of the 1-year qualifying offer.
My guess you would be better off suited just to let him walk because if you even attach a qualifying offer to him, he's probably going to take it.
That's fair. Is there any other team this offseason, Alex, other than Toronto that could be desperate for a goalie that the Blues could end up making a deal with?
New Jersey and Ottawa. I don't think New Jersey has anything that you'd be willing to trade Binnington to. Ottawa, I don't know if Brady Tkachuk is enough for me to trade Jordan Binnington.
Really?
Yeah, I think I would have to have more. I think I would have to have, if I'm going to trade you Binnington, I think I'm going to need like a Chikrin and Brady Tkachuk.
Okay. Earlier, that's really interesting. Earlier today on the Blue, you view Marner as a better player than Brady Tkachuk?
Yeah. I don't think Tkachuk's a 100-point player. I think Marner is. I know Marner is a 100, and Marner's a Selke Trophy candidate.
Earlier today on the Balloon Party, T-Bone Jackson called out Matt Rocchio for leaving the workspace a hot mess. Can we get Tanner's take on this?
This is
Does he leave this place a
100%
mess?
true. Oh, it is 100% true.
I share a desk with Rocchio. Can't confirm.
What's messy about it?
I share that same desk.
Is it clutter or is it filth? Because there's a difference.
Yes.
Okay, clutter's not as bad.
He doesn't leave.
both.
He doesn't leave the desk a mess. I don't know about behind the board, but the desk that we work at whenever we're off the air, there's napkins everywhere.
Oh.
There are at least 3 months worth of rundowns on the table.
Clean up your ish, bro.
It has never been cleaned up. I just set them off to the side at this point, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna at least get these into a
You know what you do?
area.
Grab your arm and you just.
To be fair, BK doesn't have as much room to talk as I do. Because you know what I don't leave on the desk? Anything. You know what BK leaves? A million coffee cups.
Dude, yeah.
That he
Dude,
brings
your
in and
cabinet
leaves.
has got to be on the desk in there. There's 15 coffee cups in there.
There's one.
Right now, give it a week, and then we'll see.
By Friday, there's at least 4.
You know it's right.
It's not. It's happened like 2 times in the last 3 months that I've left
That's why
a
I
coffee
show
cup
up
in there.
with nothing and leave with nothing.
Thank you. That's what I do.
T-Bone hit a nerve here because that's not true.
Uh-oh.
All right, coming up in
BK's
15
getting
minutes.
mad.
Cardinals
Okay, tough guy.
finally made the decision that we've been waiting for with Matthew Liberatore. But next, Katie Wu, Cardinals insider for The Athletic here on 101 ESPN. It's time for you to unlock your inner champion today. The place to do so is over at Victory Men's Health. They have 4 great locations across the St. Louis area. If you woke up today, you were feeling a little fatigued, you don't have that same energy that you once did, you got a change in mood, you're not feeling the way that you want to over the course of a day, the place to go is Victory Men's Health. You can learn about them at victorymenshealth.com today. And when you go there, you'll see all of the great things that they can help you with. When you walk through the door at Victory Men's Health, you're going to immediately be impressed by the fact that it's a state-of-the-art place. They've got the 4 locations, and when I walked through the door for the first time, the thing that surprised me is it wasn't that same dimly lit white office building that almost felt like a hospital. That's what a lot of the low testosterone places in the area feel like when you walk in. It's beautiful. It's absolutely fantastic. You're going to enjoy the time that you spend there. They'll do a lab draw kit on you to find out what the micronutrients are that you need help with. It could be low testosterone, and if it is, they'll help you out over there at Victory Men's Health, victorymenshealth.com. It's a Monday at noon, and that means we're going out to the 101 ESPN hotline to be joined by Katie Woo. She's the Cardinals insider for The Athletic. She's on Twitter at Katie J. Woo, and she's dealing with a little less negativity on her Twitter account over the last couple of days, I would imagine.
Give it time, Katie.
That the Cardinals have won 5 of their last 7 games. They win 2 out of 3 at home against the Boston Red Sox, and generally speaking, the offense looks a little better. She joins us now here on BK and Ferrario. Katie, how you doing today?
Gentlemen, I am well. Happy City Connects Day. I'm eager to hear everyone's opinion because this is, for whatever reason, the most polarizing thing on social media, City Connects.
Really?
I like them. Yeah. But, it's an exciting day, I guess.
Well, at least that's the most polarizing side of it, Katie, rather than like the lineup for the Cardinals or the fact that they lost another series.
Hey, at least Harrison Bader didn't come out with them on this time, because last time that was very controversial. People were very upset.
You can't get mad at Mason Wynn.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are always upset in general around this team in the city at the moment, so that's par for the course.
What was your thoughts on the City Connects jersey? This is not where I thought we were going to start, but we might as well go ahead and do so. What'd you think?
No, let's start here before we get into things that actually matter. I think I like them. You know, they're not bad by any means. They're not ugly. I actually think they're pretty cool. I think they are very safe. They're very St. Louis, so that ties into paying homage to your city and your organization. But I've seen some terrible ones. I think these are actually pretty spot on for the messaging. And, I thought the hype video actually was the best part. So
that's
shout out to the Cardinals content team. That hype video was legit. I don't know how I feel about St. Louis being a culinary hotspot. Other than that, everything else was pretty good.
Oh, Katie, shots fired. We'll talk off air about some of the recommendations of places that you need to go to. St. Louis is absolutely a culinary
Katie,
hotspot.
just out of curiosity, what are some of the other City Connect jerseys that you think are awful?
Oh, awful.
Because I'm sure BK thinks they're great.
If you say the ones that I like, I'm going to be really sad.
Come on, Katie.
I don't love Philly, and I don't love San Francisco's.
Agreed. 2 for 2. She did great.
Look at us.
All right,
You two should be best friends.
What are your thoughts on San Diego?
Yeah.
Oh, San Diego's number 1, top 2.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
You guys should go do karate in the garage.
Katie gets it. She understands. All right, Katie, let's talk about the stuff that matters. Cardinals bats are waking up. What'd you see from the lefties this weekend?
I've seen very good things. I think there was considerable concern when Wilson Contreras went out, rightfully so, because it didn't look like anyone was particularly close to stepping up to filling that offensive gap, especially from the left-handed side. But we've seen guys like Nolan Gorman come back for the power. Lars Nootbaar, some pop in there. He's getting back on base at the regular time that we're accustomed to seeing from him. But what I'm really impressed by is Alec Burleson saying, screw your bad luck, I'm a major league hitter, and I'm going to be in the 5-hole for the foreseeable future, and I'm going to contribute. It's been tough for Burleson. It goes back to last year. Ollie Marmol was really high on him, and fans got so tired of hearing about expected average, expected slugging, batting average on balls in play. I get it, because what ultimately matters if the guy gets on base or not. But they were adamant that his bat-to-ball skill, his contact rate would translate to major league success. And right now we're seeing the kind of consistent hitter that Burleson can be, and this offense really needed him to do that. So great for Burley to get things going. Better at bats from Goldschmidt. I'm not ready to say, he's all the way back, but remarkably better than what we saw over the first 6 weeks. And once Nolan Arenado finds that power stroke, it's coming. It has to be coming, right? I think this offense will look much, much better than what we saw in April and early May.
So, Katie, maybe it's just because I have trust issues, but even after they take 2 of 3 against the Red Sox, and I mean, you showcase your offense against some really good pitching, I still feel like I don't believe in this team. Am I wrong?
Well, to be fair, it's not like the last almost calendar year has warranted any type of confidence. That's unfortunately the position that this organization has put themselves in. So I always say, if you're doubting the team or, you're not quite sure that they can actually do this, if they're really turning it around, the best way to believe in that is for the team to continue to win. So that's what they're going to have to do. And I think the rest of this homestand with Baltimore and Chicago are 2 really good tests. Baltimore is a young and prospering team. They're one of the most exciting teams in baseball. The Cubs will be a chance for the Cardinals to make up some ground in the division. It's so weird that they haven't played any other division opponent except Milwaukee. And as we know, that has not gone well. So I think it's always exciting when you have the Cubs at Busch Stadium, Cardinals-Cubs, big rivalry. We know this, but I think those games, even in late May, carry a little bit more weight because the Cardinals still very much have to prove if this is who they are, if the last week is really who they are, or if it was kind of just a fluke in the highs and lows of the season.
All right, Katie, one other thing that we got to talk about is the downside of the weekend, and that's Sunday's game, specifically Matthew Liberatore on the mound as the starter. It's unfair, in my opinion, to even evaluate him as a starter because it's not the position that he was supposed to be in this year. He was excellent as a reliever because he goes up primarily against left-handed hitters, and that's what he's been really good against. He's been terrible so far this year, not productive this year against right-handed hitters. What, from your understanding, based on your conversations around the clubhouse, around the team, led to them going back to Liberatore yesterday, and why the quick turnaround and saying we're going to probably go somewhere else for that number 5 starter moving forward?
Yeah, I'm glad we brought this up because I think there is a lot to unpack here. Let's start with yesterday's loss. You look at the score, 11-3, you're like, okay, that's not ideal. But there are different times of losses in the season. There are losses that players cause, with bad play, not execution. There are managerial decisions that cause losses. To me, yesterday's loss was an organization loss because Matthew Liberatore, and this in no way reflects, Libby's talent or his potential or his ability, but Matthew Liberatore should have never been put in a position to start again. And I agree with you. And I think Ollie Marmol said the same. It's unfair that the Cardinals keep pushing him from reliever to starter to reliever to starter like 80 times in the last 2 weeks. The Cardinals were really consistent with their messaging with Libby out of spring training. You're going to be a reliever. And to me, one of the best things that this St. Louis ball club does is shorten games from the 6th inning on. You get guys like Sonny Gray, Kyle Gibson, Miles Michaelis most of the time. Will get you to that, 5, 2/3, 6th inning mark. And then you have a bullpen that's crafted for every lane you could possibly need to bridge that gap. And Matthew Liberatore was a key part of that. And he was pitching really well in that role. So it's hard for Libby to continue to keep going from reliever to starter to reliever. And keep in mind, he rarely had a true bullpen in between those starts because he was still being used as a reliever. Now, to me, that's not a reflection of Ollie Marmol managing or Dusty Blake as the pitching coach. It's a reflection of the front office and the player development in AAA not generating enough pitching development to cover them in spots like this. This right here with Steven Matz out for the foreseeable future, that's a spot for Zach Thompson. Where is he? Oh, he's in AAA building up velo because he lost a bunch of weight over the offseason and doesn't have enough to sustain his pitching. Whereas Andre Palante, he's back in Memphis trying to stretch out to be a starter, working on his pitches to right-handed hitters. Sema Bursa, apparently not an option. All of their pitching prospects, they don't really feel like calling up because they're not ready. So where does that leave? That leaves Matthew Liberatore here to fill in a need. So to me, I don't really think you can pin a loss on anyone except the front office here because clearly with a big hole, this Steven Matz is going to be out for a while. They have no viable option. And that to me is a huge concern.
What's their next step then, Katie? Is it scouring the free agent market to see what old washed up pitcher is still available?
Whoa.
Sorry, Rich.
Wow. Guys.
I was picturing Zach Greinke in my head. Sorry.
Would that be something, right? I don't know. It's not, we're so early in the season in mid-May. It's not like they can go make a trade. They're probably going to have to look at the free agent market if they decide that guys like, if you're going to pick one guy from AAA, in my opinion, Sema Bursa is the one that you look at. But that again goes back to, are you rushing up a pitching prospect out of need? Is that what's best for their overall development? Do you want this guy every 5 days to come out and get what feels like a must-need win, given where they are in the standings? Like, that's a complicated place to be. And I do think, out of fairness to the front office, they thought that they were covered with spot starters because they had Libby and Thompson available. And they thought that maybe Gordon Graceffo and Michael McGreevy would be farther along by now, considering it's 2024. But all of those options aren't viable right now. So I think it's on the front office to figure out how to fix this. This is not like Steven Matz is going to be out and missing 1 to 2 more starts. He just started throwing again for the second time. So just by what we know about pitcher injuries, that's at least 3 weeks before he's cleared to go even on a rehab assignment. So that to me, we talk a lot about the offense, but for me right now, the biggest issue is who is going to take that number 5 starting role, because I don't think St. Louis has a clear option here.
Brad Keller. That's the name, right?
Brad Keller, Eric Lauer. I'm sure there are a bunch of probably ideal Cardinals out there. We'll see.
Dylan Cease was out there at the beginning of the season.
Okay.
Oh, here we go. I don't know, guys. To me, it's more of an indictment on the pitching development and what's going on in AAA than it is on anything at the major league level or what the major league staff is doing.
Katie, final question. We'll get you out of here on this. What's the number one storyline you're watching for this week?
Oh, it's a good question. I think more or less is this offense continuing to be sustainable because, again, they're relying on a lot of guys they shouldn't have to. You credit Alec Burleson for stepping up and filling a need. I think it's more or less, can they hit for more extra bases? Can they hit for more power? Look, scoring is scoring. I know they rattled off like 50 singles in that game against Boston, and they scored 5 runs in the 8th. I think it doesn't matter how you score, but I do think a lineup built for power, like the heart of the order for the Cardinals, should have more power going forward. It's heating up at Busch Stadium. Seriously, it is very hot outside. Drink your water. So maybe we'll see a little bit more of the balls leaving the ballpark. But for me, it's, where is this power? Who is it going to come from and when? So that's what I'm looking at.
I like it. Hey, Katie, we appreciate the time as always. You can read Katie's latest piece over at The Athletic. She posted earlier today on the signs of life for a Cardinals offense that needed them desperately. Read that over at The Athletic. Follow her on Twitter at KatieJWoo and hear her each and every Monday here on BK and Ferrario. Katie, appreciate the time as always. Enjoy yourself at the ballpark today.
You got it, guys. Talk soon.
That's see you, Katie. Katie Woo joining us here on 101 ESPN. Appreciate her time as always. They are not going to get any easy outs over the next week or so pitching wise. The pitching that they're going to see in this series against the Baltimore Orioles, really freaking good. Shota Imanaga is currently slated to start game 1 of that series against the Cardinals with the Cubs this weekend. He has been arguably the best pitcher in Major League Baseball so far this year. They've got Jameson Taillon and then Assad, who every time that I see him pitch looks like the best pitcher in the history of Major League Baseball.
At least the Cardinals are missing Kyle Hendricks.
So that's what's ahead for you this week. We're going to find out pretty quickly on whether or not what we saw this weekend is real for the offense or if it was just a mirage and it was a nice 2-game stretch.
Yeah. And that's why, as great as that was, which, look, you got to give them credit for what they did against the Red Sox and that pitching staff. I'm still not believing in the offense until I see it go on a consistent stretch, because you did it with the Diamondbacks, you did it with the Mets. I want to see a consistent stretch before I can sit there and say, okay, they fixed it.
By the way, we do have a bunch of people on the text line. They're all saying the same thing. Hey, guys, call Trevor Bauer. Mo has said privately for 2 years now, I think it is. No, absolutely not, non-starter. He said it publicly yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you got to like the answer. I'm not telling you got to agree with the answer. But the reason we're not discussing Trevor Bauer is because it is not an option for the Cardinals. They are flat out dismissing the possibility of signing him. He went on with KSDK yesterday, John Mozeliak did, and told Frank Cusimano, when asked directly, would you consider Trevor Bauer? No. That is not somebody that we are interested in signing here in St. Louis. He didn't think that he would be a good fit for this team. So, again, right, wrong, or indifferent, however you feel about it, I've got my feelings on it. I know the two of you do, and I'm sure many in our audience do. It's not an option for the Cardinals. What I do think is going to be an option is Brad Keller. Yes. I think that's probably your 5th starter.
That's what we've gotten to now. We're celebrating Brad Keller.
I mean, he's better than Rich Hill.
DFA'd. I'm not sure that's true. He was DFA'd yesterday by the White Sox. He is stretched out. That's why I think he's more of an option than Rich Hill, just because he hasn't thrown a pitch in a major league game in a year.
Little leaguers.
Yeah. Whereas Brad Keller has been throwing. Now, not particularly well. He's a
glorified opener.
He's a 5 starter. He's going to give you 4 or 5 innings, and you're going to give up 3 or 4 runs within those 5 innings.
You'd be lucky to get 4 out of him, like 3.
I mean, it's better than what you're getting right now with Matthew Liberatore, and it allows you to put Matthew Liberatore back into the bullpen, and it prevents you from having to call up somebody that's unprepared to do this at the major league level and potentially putting behind their development. So that's why you make a move like this. It ain't great. Katie's 100% correct. It's an indictment on the front office and what they did in the offseason, that they are here of looking at Lauer or Keller or Rich Hill or Greinke, whoever. The fact that we're even mentioning those names on May 20th when they have exactly one injury in the rotation, that's everything that you need to know about what they decided to do during the offseason. It's why we all said, get one more. Get one more. and they decided not to do that. Coming up next, we are going to talk a little bit more about that decision with Matthew Liberatore and the two other decisions by the manager over the weekend that gave us a glimpse into how they currently view Miles Mikolas and Dylan Carlson. Do that next year on 101 ESPN. The Cardinals made the decision that they should have made a long time ago. They decided to put Matthew Liberatore back into the bullpen after yesterday's start. Alex, he never should have been asked to start that game. It was an unfair ask of him. In that game yesterday against the Boston Red Sox, he ended up giving up a bunch of hits to the right-handed hitters. Right-handed hitters went 6 for 11 against him with 2 doubles, a homer, a walk, and 1 strikeout. 6 for 11. They came into that game batting .315, right-handed hitters did, against Matthew Liberatore with a slugging percentage above 500. In other words, they became, against Matthew Liberatore, better than any Cardinals hitter has been all season long against any kind of pitching. It's unfair. to ask him to be something that he's not. He's not a starter. He may become one day, but right now he is not that pitcher. He's gone 3 starts so far this year for the Cardinals. He has yet to record at least 4 innings pitched. And in those 3 starts, the Cardinals bullpen was tasked with covering 17 innings. 17. You cannot sustain as a team when that's what you're asking of your bullpen at least once every 5 days. So yeah, they had to go a different direction. They had to go with somebody different. I just couldn't believe that it took this long for them to get there. And I'm not telling you they've got a great option in the minor leagues. They don't. And that's an indictment, as we said in the last segment, Alex, on the entire organizational decisions of the offseason. But, man, I think it's totally unfair what they did to Matthew Liberatore, and it's cost them multiple times already so far this season. Not just when he was on the mound, but also the trickle-down effect of what it does to your bullpen in the other days.
Yeah, I mean, you screwed the pooch with this one because, like Katie mentioned, like the 2 guys that were supposed to be the depth pieces for you in starters weren't stretched out in this scenario, and Zach Thompson and Andre Palante. You had to send them down to get them right, and you didn't assess how impactful the depth was going to be for this team this offseason. You signed Lynn, Gibson, and Gray and said, we're good to go because they're going to provide us innings, which is just so amazing to me that you didn't see the track record of Steven Matz's time with St. Louis and say, you know what, we should probably plan for this guy not to be available. And maybe they did. Maybe they thought Zach Thompson was on and Andre Palante would be good enough to just hold down the fort until Steven Matz came back. But that's not evaluating your players the right way because you saw from last season, Zach Thompson didn't look like a guy that was going to be sustainable, nor did Andre Palante. And when you pulled Matthew Liberatore out of the bullpen and said, well, he's going to have to do for us, you not only put him in a bad position, but you put your bullpen in a bad 100%. Position, which put your team in a bad position. So I agree 100% with Katie. We can point the finger at Matthew Liberatore and say, oh, well, you weren't the starter, or point the finger at Ollie because he keeps going back to him. This is all in the front office. This is like what we talked about last week where you go back to 2021, I think it was, when you had the opportunity to make the team a contender and pounce on the opportunity when you had Arenado and Goldschmidt and you sat on your hands and you didn't make a move. I know you made moves this offseason, but you should have seen, we all saw that Steven Matz wasn't going to be healthy and that you had no depth in your pitching while we saw Chris Sale get traded for, while we saw Dylan Cease get traded for, while there were guys on the market that you could have signed and said, yeah, you know what? We're just going to plan on Steven Matz not being here all season, so we have our backup plans.
That's what frustrates me, man, is they had opportunities. They just weren't creative. There were chances for them to go out and acquire legitimate starting pitching. And they touted, how many times did we hear them talk about their depth, their improved depth from a year ago?
Yeah.
And I remember saying at the time, it's nonsense. What they are trying to sell about them improving their depth is a lie. Like, they're just lying to our faces. Because Drew Rahm was a significant part of that. He was a part of your team down the stretch last year and wasn't very good. And this year, yes, there was an injury there that took place where right now, man, what I would give for Drew Rahm to be a part of this rotation. He is essentially the equivalent of what we're talking about with Brad Keller, Eric Lauer, et cetera. Like, he would give you basically what they're giving you. So would that help currently? Sure. But if that's your answer, you are asking the wrong questions. And then beyond that, it was all the same dudes. It was another year of Matthew Liberatore. It was another year of Zach Thompson. They no longer have Jake Woodford or Dakota Hudson. Like, in fact, you have less depth coming into this year than you did a year ago. It's just one different name and then a bunch of really, really young guys that are unprepared for the major league level. If they could get to July without having anything happen in their rotation, which nobody does, maybe you could have found a way. Or if nothing happens to any of those 3, like, you got to get good returns on one of Thompson, Liberatore, or Drew Rahm, which were unlikely to happen. Maybe I could have believed on the Thompson one, and then when you saw it, they should have seen it in camp. When he reports to camp, has lost all this weight, and doesn't have any of his velocity, that should have been your sign right then and there of, uh-oh, red alarm bells are going off. We've got this. We've got Drew Rahm that goes down in spring training. We've got one guy left that can help us with our...
Like any other front office would have seen that and said, boy, we need to make adjustments. We need to make adjustments fast. And the Cardinals are just like, no, we'll be fine. And that's what is so infuriating is it just feels like every time the Cardinals feel like they have an opportunity to pounce, they sit on their hands and they say, no, we're good. We'll figure it out. and they wait too long, and then it gets away from them, and then you look back in retrospect and you say, damn, all we needed to do was get creative and trade for a Chris Sale, or all we needed to do was just go out there and maybe cough up a couple of prospects that weren't hitting for the longest time this season, just so we could bring in another pitcher and know that we're covered.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with the idea of going with Thompson and Rom as your 6-7 coming into the season, but then to your point, when you get to spring training, and you can clearly tell, and we brought it up from his first start, hey, something's wrong with Thompson. And they were trying to say, well, it's mechanics, we can kind of get this figured out. And as we've seen, he hasn't gotten it figured out. And you lost Rom. Like, I don't have an issue with how they operated, because I could see how they could squint and say, hey, for the first 2 months, we're going to have Thompson as our 6, which we at points in the offseason were saying, hey, go into the year with him as your 5. Spend bigger money for a guy with higher upside. So I can't not bring that up, because we did talk about that. So I can see how you could squint and say, he's our 6. Rom's kind of our 7th we can get away with, and then we'll kind of figure it out if
when you get to spring training and things go wrong,
exactly.
you have to adjust on the fly.
And that's where I think it is fair to be critical of the front office, because they did not clearly do anything to adjust the pitching. And there are a bunch of guys that are still available that take minor league deals going into spring training. There are guys that are opting out of deals. You can trade for somebody that is a depth starter in the minor leagues and give up probably cash for them once they go through waivers or they opt out of their deal. Like, it's not the hardest thing to find. I see consistently guys being placed on waivers, opting out of deals. Like, there's guys that are available. They've got to go out and find them, because it was clear Liberatore was never going to work. And I said that they should probably try an opener with him. I don't think that works, because you're going to go up against smart baseball managers like Alex Cora, who, guess what happened yesterday? The moment that Liberatore leaves the game, boom, he flips it. It's a line switch. Here come the lefties that are off the bench. Like, it just never was going to work with Matthew Liberatore.
All right, so the other thing that I wanted to get to from this weekend, decisions that were made that I think give us some insight into how the team currently views these players. And I know that there's going to be text 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line. Oh, BK getting on his soapbox again about Dylan Carlson. No, this is what the team is telling you, not what I am telling you. One thing that I thought we learned about the Cardinals over the weekend, they do not view Dylan Carlson as a center fielder. You can disagree with them all you want to. They have him like 6th on their depth chart right now of center fielders in their organization, because Carlson on Saturday hit for Michael Ciani against a lefty in the bottom of the 7th inning. It was a good call. You platoon advantage there. Carlson good against lefty, solid against lefties, bad against righties. Ciani's a left-handed hitter going up against the lefty. It was the right move managerially speaking there. He comes through with a hit. Eventually, Cardinals in that inning go up 2-1. The next inning, with them up 2-1, 8th inning, Cardinals move Nootbaar to center and put Carlson in right field. That was telling. And then, when they do the exact same thing the next day, when they've got Carlson in the game late with Lars Nootbaar, they've got Carlson in right with Nootbaar in center again. Guys, I don't think any of us view Nootbaar as a long-term center fielder. I think most viewed Carlson as being a better defensive center fielder than Nootbaar coming into this season. Well, they clearly have flip-flopped that belief. They see Nootbaar as a better center fielder than Dylan Carlson right now, and it's hard to disagree with the way that we've seen Carlson playing defensively so far this year. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why that is. Maybe it still is something that's an after effect of his ankle issue from last year. Maybe it's a shoulder issue where he's playing it safe out there. I can't explain it, but his defense has fallen off a cliff so far this season, and they clearly do not view him as one of their best options in center field. So keep that in mind as we move forward here. He is not an option for you in center anymore.
He's played 4 complete games since he's returned out of 11 total games. He's a 4th outfielder, and they're telling you that. And we can't, sure, he's returning from this injury, but at some point, if you keep making the argument of, oh, well, he's not at 100%, so you can't really judge that, then he's not an everyday player, because he can't stay 100%. I think they're telling you exactly what they view of him as. He's a 4th outfielder.
At best, and I think he's closer to a 5th or 6th one for them right now, honestly.
Yeah. I think he's playing for his trade value right now, because I just don't see him having future. Cassiani's a better everyday center fielder than Carlson is right now, and if Nootbaar's ahead of him on that depth chart, well, that makes Nootbaar more valuable than Carlson, and we haven't even added in that when Edman comes back, he's going to be viewed ahead of him in center field. So I think he's playing for his future for another organization.
It's small sample size. It's only 25 at-bats. He's batting 130, and he does not have an extra base hit yet. Yeah. It's been really bad at the plate so far this year.
Not only do they view him as a corner outfielder, I think defensively in the corner he hasn't looked that good this season so far.
It's been really weird. All right, the final thing that I wanted to get to here, Michaelis gets through 5 innings, allows 2 hits, 1 earned run. That's on a homer. 79 pitches. This is Saturday evening. Abreu, Wong, and Devers are coming up. It's a 1-1 game. The Cardinals decide to go to John King for that spot. Got a couple of lefties there, makes some sense platoon-wise. Instead of trying to push through Michaelis through that inning. Now, it was warm this weekend, but Michaelis is a guy that is known for both his competitiveness and, more importantly, his fitness level. I don't think this was an issue of him not being able to continue along. I think this was a manager decision of our best option here is John King. It tells you a little something that they decided John King is a better option against the left-handed bats that were coming through than Miles Michaelis. Michaelis is not giving them the innings that they need, dude. And it's because they couldn't trust him in that spot. It was too close of a game. 1-1 ended up working. The aggressive maneuvering with their bullpen on Saturday ended up being the right call based on the decision and also based on the process of what we've seen from Michaelis so far this year. But it says a lot that they couldn't trust Michaelis to get through that sixth inning with... There are some decent hitters in that lineup against Boston, but they are not great hitters, and they couldn't trust him to be able to get through six.
And as basically you don't have a number two. And as we go deeper into the season, when your offense starts to click, this is what we always talk about, where it's always a sliding scale with the Cardinals. One side starts going to work, and then the other side doesn't. When your offense, maybe it starts to click in June, this is where your pitching falls apart, because you're going to have one top guy in Sonny Gray, one of Lynn or Gibson are going to be there for you in terms of all reliable, emphasis on the all. But now you don't have that middle starter with Miles Michaelis. And if they can't freaking trust him to go the 6 innings, how are you going to make up these innings throughout the second half of the season when you need to be going on a big-time run to make the playoffs?
Especially when Liberatore was scheduled to start on Sunday. Yeah. That's another factor that has to be going through your mind as you're making that decision. Is I could try to steal an inning here for my bullpen when I've got a bullpen game essentially the next day, or I can go try to really be aggressive, ramp it up, and get the win tonight.
And Lynn can't get through 5 for you.
Well, they right now, and they feel like Michaelis is a 5 and dive, and without strikeout stuff. They clearly view him as their 4th best starter right now. Now, I'm not saying they're going to view him that way the rest of the season, but we've seen what Ollie does. Ollie will kind of test guys along. So this game, he said, hey, we need this series because we need to start winning these things and start racking these things up, so it's best for me to pull him here. But don't be shocked if they continue to try and push him through 6, and at some point, if he pitches well, they'll get back to that role. But until then, he is a 5 and dive guy for them.
Yeah, you can't trust him. Close game. Got to get him out. Got to go to our bullpen. Got to be super aggressive here because you just can't trust him to be able to get through those innings unscathed. All right, coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to dive into the junk drawer. At 1 o'clock, we'll react to some of John Mozeliak's comments on KSDK from yesterday. But next, Alex saw something that Matthew Tkachuk said the other day, and it reiterates what we've been talking about for a while here in St. Louis. We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friend and insurance agent, Tracy Bibb, taking care of my family with our home and auto insurance. What I love about Tracy is the customer service that you get with their company. We've been using them for the last 5 years now, and every time we have an issue, whether it's with the vehicle, whether it's with hail damage or some type of issue with our home, we call Tracy, she answers, and we get answers right away. We've all been in the scenario where something's happened and you call your insurance. It's an 800 number. Nobody answers. You're sitting somewhere, whether it's on the side of the road or with a flooded basement, waiting for somebody to call you back. Make sure you get with the insurance agent that is there for you, and that's Tracy and her team. They preach all the time. It's not a matter of if something happens. It's when something happens. Give her a call today. Tell her Alex Ferrario sent you, and she will walk you through a free non-committal quote super simple. Tracy will do it all for you there on the phone. 314-328-4260. That's 314-328-4260. It's no fib. You're always in great hands with the bib.
Terry Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals lost to the Red Sox yesterday 11-3, but they take 2 of 3 from Boston. They are back in action tonight as they start a 3-game set with the Baltimore Orioles. 6:45 will be first pitch as Sonny Gray is on the mound for St. Louis. The Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alex got a snack, so you won't hear his stomach growling on the radio anymore.
Man, sounds like there's an animal in the building or something.
Alex went to Mississippi over the weekend. Decided to have himself a good little time. On Saturday, he told us 36 holes of golf.
Yeah.
Multiple bottles of liquor. Mm-hmm. And Alex is back in one piece on Monday morning.
Also in the south humidity, in the middle of a sun beating down on you. Yeah, I'm surprised I'm here. I think that's why my stomach's growling. It's eating itself from this weekend.
I'm genuinely amazed that you were able to make it back. And you're in as good of a place mentally, physically, emotionally as you are tonight.
I'm impressed. BK would have been out till Wednesday.
That's true. BK totally would have been out
all week.
Nobody can say that I'm not a team player because. But there was. I'll be honest with you guys. There was a moment on Saturday that I thought about just sending you a pre-message saying, "Hey guys, leave me alone. I'll be back on Tuesday."
Scheduling it.
Yeah, just scheduling it now. I won't be in on Monday, but we powered through.
So while you were out, I believe this was Matt Tkachuk made a statement. This is after the most recent game that they won in the playoffs.
It's when they shut down, or they beat Boston, I think it was Game 6, and they ended the series.
So he came out afterwards and said, to win in this league, to win in the playoffs, you need big defensemen. Mm-hmm. And Alex, this is something we've been talking about for a while. It's not some like big revelation that's like, oh, Big defenseman.
What?
That's what it is. Now, we did this last year. We talked about it. You asked all the different people that we had on as guests of like, hey, what are people going to learn about Vegas? What's going to be the takeaway from this? And the answer is typically, well, big tree trunks. That's what you need among your defensive core. I feel like that's being reiterated this postseason because sometimes you'll see like the Blues win one way and then like the Colorado Avalanche win a very different way the next year. That's not happening right now. What did you take from his comment? What are you taking from this postseason in that regard?
I think what he's saying, and when he uses the word big defenseman, don't think height. I think he's also talking size. Like, look at the Florida Panthers. 6'4", 215 pounds, 6'2", 191, 6 foot 195, 201, 206, 199. That's their starting 6 defensemen on a nightly basis. And they wiped the floor with the Boston Bruins. Boston made a little bit of a comeback, but we all knew it was over prior to Game 4 with the Florida Panthers being up 3-0. So I really believe what Matthew Tkachuk is getting at there is you can't win with prolific offensive-minded defensemen. Sure, Cale Makar's, the Quinn Hughes of the world, you can win with those guys. But if you don't have size clearing the front of your own end that can play a nasty brand of hockey, you're not going to be able to survive in the playoffs. Can you get through the regular season? Absolutely. Can you go any further than that? I don't think so, because Boston, just look at the Boston Bruins defensive core. They were outmatched in that game because guys like Matthew Tkachuk, Sam Reinhart, they posted up shop in front of the net and nobody would stop them. Whereas Boston couldn't get any of their smaller stature forwards to the front of the net. They've got guys that are sitting at 5'10", 180 pounds. They have a lot of dudes that are taller, 6'1", 209, 6'5", 6'4". But the difference is you can be big, but if you don't play big, you're not going to have success. So if there's one emphasis for this Blues team to take away watching the Florida Panthers have the success right now, one, it's you should have traded for Matthew Tkachuk. But two, you got to have size on the blue line. And we talk so much about how I'll go get a number 2 centerman or make sure you have depth on the 3rd and 4th line. None of that freaking matters unless you have size on your defense. And right now, you have one guy that plays big.
And if you look just look at all of the teams that have advanced, right? The New York Rangers, I'm sure we'll probably get a text. But Alex, Adam Fox is small. He is. Yeah. He's 5'11", $185.
Yeah, but what do they surround him with?
Here's the rest of their lineup defensively. 6'5", 215, that's his partner. 6'3", 205, 6 foot 190. That's the only below average size guy that they have in their lineup.
That's a group of mongoons out there.
6'3", 205, 6 foot 200 pounds. Yeah. You look at what Dallas has to offer. Miro Heiskanen, 6'1", 195, 6'3", 205, 6'3", 220, 6'2", 195, 6'1", 205, 6'5", 210. Those are their defensemen. Mm-hmm. All of them over 6 foot. The vast majority of them 205 pounds or bigger. This is what people are building around. And then you look at what the Blues have right now, and it's just it doesn't compare.
It goes back to who did we have on at the beginning? Craig Button, who basically said nobody's afraid of your defense.
And I don't need them to be terrified. I've got to have a little more girth. My defense needs to be a little more girthy.
Girth on D.
Mm-hmm. That's what they need this.
You don't need speed. You don't need skill. You don't need talent. You need girth.
You're getting it.
I would take skill.
It's why I think Matthew Kessel had so much success.
I agree.
6'2", 205. That is the style of defenseman that works in this current game.
And you can have one. You can have a Justin Falk, who I believe does play heavier than what he gets credit for. And this season, I'm hoping is an anomaly because he was injured. But he's 6 foot, I think around 190 something. You can have one. But look at what they threw out there.
Krug, Leddy, and Falk are all in that range.
And Perunovic.
And Perunovic are all in that 5'9" to 6 foot, 185 to 200 pound range. Most of these teams, they'll throw out one of those guys, maybe 2 of them. The Blues have 3 in their top 4.
Yeah.
That's where it's different.
And you can have 1 in your top 4.
Yeah, maybe.
That's typically how the teams have success. 1 in your top 4.
And that dude better be good.
Yep.
Like
Gotta
you
be
can
Quinn
get by
Hughes.
with Nick Leddy being as a part of your top 4, or Justin Falk top 4, or Torrey Krug top 4. You can't have all 3 of those guys. They just cannot be the way that you operate. Otherwise, these teams are going to take advantage of you. All right, coming up in just a little while, top of the hour, we're going to react to John Mozeliak's comments on KSDK. He said a lot. There are a few of these clips that are getting a lot of play. I'm not sure they're the ones that I had the biggest response to, though. We'll get into that coming up at 1 o'clock. Coming up next, the Junk Drawer here on 101 ESPN. All right, let's dive into the junk drawer. T-Bone's got something for us today. T-Bone, what do you got?
All right, guys, I saw this over the weekend on X. It is the 5 most looked up people on Wikipedia in 2023. So I'm wondering if you guys can guess the top 5.
I have one off the top of my head.
Please.
Okay.
Travis Kelce.
0.
Oh, interesting.
Wow. I thought that because Taylor Swift's boyfriend. Everybody
Sure.
who doesn't know football is Googling who Travis Kelce is.
Not in the top
Wow.
5.
Okay. Then mine are going to be very different on this then because I had a couple written down that I thought would have been there.
I think Donald Trump will be on this list.
Donald Trump was number 1 at 243 million page clicks.
Joe Biden's got to be the other one.
No, not in the top 5.
I thought that both would have been searched an awful lot.
Nah, man. One of them creates a lot more news than the other. That's no political
way to
comment
go.
there.
Way to go.
Listen,
Jeez.
I think everybody in our listening audience, regardless of which lane you go down, would agree. One creates slightly more news and headlines than the other.
I think we live in a world where everybody creates plenty of news if you're in political.
Now, if there's another politician
There's one more
on
politician.
this list, I have a thought as to who I think it is. I'm not sure that this person rises to that level, though.
Okay.
Kevin McCarthy?
No.
Because of the speakership? No? Okay.
You guys were close with the Biden
Oh,
guess.
Kamala.
No.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Who did Biden serve under previously?
Oh, Obama.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
he was 3rd at
wonder why people
161 million clicks.
Why are people looking up Obama?
You think that one's crazy?
Yeah.
Wait till you hear number 5 because he was 3rd.
Okay. I mean, fair enough.
Are the rest in politics or are they?
So one is I don't know if they would technically count as politics, but think of like it was a major story, and that happened in 2023. This person passed away, and there's a show about this person on Netflix.
Show about them on Netflix.
Yeah.
I was going to say Perry. What's his face?
Katie?
From Friends.
No, Matthew.
Matthew Perry.
Passed
no, not-
away
it's not
in
Matthew
2023.
Show about him.
I'm pretty sure this person passed away. In
God, it'd be awkward if it wasn't.
Yeah.
Well, I know
can't wait
this.
for
I
you to
know.
say who it is.
I know she is dead.
Okay, so it's a she.
She's not American.
I'm drawing a blank. Who are you
blanking.
talking about?
Who is it?
Queen Elizabeth II.
Oh, okay.
At 198
I don't
million
care.
clicks. The Crown is the
That
show
makes sense.
that I was thinking of.
Sure, I don't
All right,
care.
the 4th person is a athlete.
Messi?
Not Messi, but
Beckham?
you're close. No,
Mbappe?
no. It's a soccer player.
Ronaldo?
Ronaldo.
Okay.
Cristiano Ronaldo with
makes sense.
151 million clicks. Now, the 5th person, I don't fully understand why this person is number 5. I have an idea as to why, but I don't fully understand why. Is a musician.
P. Diddy?
No.
That'll be 2024.
No, but they do have a questionable pass. They are not a rapper, more of a pop star,
Michael Jackson?
a male.
Oh,
Yep,
just-
Michael
oh,
Jackson.
wow.
Michael Jackson had 142 million clicks.
Did something...
I mean, I know he's had all
There's
kinds
a
of
musical
controversy around
going
him.
on.
Well, I know the
his musical, I think, won the Tony last year.
But that documentary, that was way before 2023,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
no.
The Leaving Neverland?
I think some of these people are just forever going to be in the limelight. Like
That makes
Barack
sense.
Obama. I don't... Text line, God bless you if you disagree with this. I don't think there was anything that happened last year that was like... Obama, I gotta look him up, man. But I think he's just like, hey, he's a pretty important historical figure. So he's always going to be a part of the public consciousness because of that.
Ronaldo makes sense. He's a global figure.
Sure. And was last year the year that he was in the transfer talk conversations for the Saudi team?
Yeah, to the Saudi team. And Queen Elizabeth II makes sense because she passed
Of
away
course.
last year. I'm pretty sure she passed away last year. I
I
remember.
am a little surprised Travis Kelce wasn't in the top.
I thought
bet
that-
you-
I thought him or Taylor Swift.
I thought that would have been number 1.
yeah,
I wonder if
would
they
have
were
thought
top 10
for sure
Yeah.
for both of them. What are we going to look back at this year? Like, is there any story so far in 2024 that would have led to somebody being on this list?
P. Diddy's going to be on this list next year.
I don't know if he's that big though for
I mean,
top
Trump
5.
will be in the top. It will be
He'll
number
be
one
top.
again.
I really wonder if that Richard Gadd that did Baby Reindeer, if that's going to be up there.
No, that's not
Man,
big enough.
I feel like that is super talked about right now in the UK.
Yeah, but not to the same. Not enough that it would. Like, think about the people that we're talking about.
No,
here.
yeah,
It's
you're
Michael
right.
Jackson. It's Barack Obama. It's the Queen, and one of the biggest soccer stars in the world. Whereas this is like a kind of niche.
I could see how Taylor Swift could
Netflix
crack
story.
that top 5.
Yeah, for
because
sure.
dating Travis
I would have thought
Kelce.
last year though. That was when
Yeah.
her Eras tour was taking place, and like
Now she's got a new
selling out.
album out.
Yeah.
I could see where she maybe cracks the
Ohtani?
top 5.
Potentially because of the
he's
story.
gambling.
Yeah, it might be his interpreter more than Notani.
I could see him being a part of that for sure. But
Yeah, I don't know who else would fall into that, though, because that's 3 really good ones. And like you said, Trump would still be on there.
that would probably be the ones that I would have immediately that come to mind.
Maybe with an election, Biden.
I was going to
could
say,
get
you're
up
probably
there,
going to have
but-
Biden on there with the election.
But I don't know. I can't think of any, like, there's no, like, outside Taylor Swift, any other, like, star that I can think of, like, music-wise that
Especially
would
no
get there.
sports star
Yeah.
so far.
I wonder if Tom Brady, because of the roast.
Oh, I could see that.
that's a good
And
one.
with him being on
Fox.
football games this year,
Yeah.
Brady could be somebody that you could throw into
Brady
this
probably
list.
going to be on that.
Yeah, I could see. Again, I don't know if he rises to the level of what we're talking about here, but if we like expanded this list, guys that are thrown into the mix, the top 10, top 15, I could see him being part of that for sure. All right, coming up in about 15 minutes, we're going to talk a little bit about how Mo's comments compare to what you're hearing from Toronto right now. But next, we're going to hear from John Mozeliak a little bit. He was on KSDK yesterday with Frank Cusimano, and I thought Frank did a really good interview with him. It was about 15 minutes if you see the extended version of the interview on the internet right now. There's a lot of quotes that are going around. I'm not sure they're the best ones. We'll play some of this for you next year on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. John Mozeliak did a sit-down interview yesterday with Frank Cusimano. It aired on KSDK. You should go check out the full thing. It's about 15 minutes long. It's on KSDK's website right now. The full extended version of the interview, I believe, is well worth your time. We're going to play some of it for you here today on the show. I want to react to some of these quotes, Alex, because I think it's really good. It's insightful. It gives you a pretty good glimpse into his current mindset. So let's start out with this. On if John Mozeliak worries about job security. This is one of the couple of clips that's been floating out on Twitter, so I think a lot of people have seen this one. Here's Mo talking about his worries, if at all, about job security.
Do you worry at all about your job security?
Do I?
Yeah.
Not in the sense that most people think about it. Like, I certainly understand I'm responsible for this, and I know if it doesn't go right, then I should be held accountable for it. But if I were to never work another day again in baseball, I'll be okay. I'll figure out something to do. Like, it's not where I was, 15, 20 years ago, and I would have been fired. It would have been much more devastating. And, but I take a lot of pride in what I do and what we try to do here as an organization. And, I hope it doesn't end that way, but I certainly understand it's plausible.
Okay. What you just heard is a well-adjusted human being. What fans want to hear in that job is not a well-adjusted human being. And those two things can coexist, right? Like, Mo sounds like he's in a pretty good mental space, given what comes with being in that role.
He sounds like somebody who's worked in this business a long time.
And understands there's a lot of criticism that comes with it, and you have to find ways to deal with that. Dude, that's hard. I've asked Ollie about this. Like, the amount of criticism that gets thrown your way in that job in this city is endless. And to deal with that, to be able to handle that, put it off to the side and not allow it to filter into what you're doing day to day is really difficult. And there's a lot of people that just can't handle it. I couldn't do that job. It would get to me. It would bother me mentally in a way that I could never actually get to what I needed to do because of the things that are being said, many of which are not true. And I know are not true based on what we are seeing internally, but we can't talk about externally. That would bother me to no end. Alex, there are things that happen on this show where we get criticism on the text line or via YouTube or on Twitter or whatever. Most of the time, it doesn't really bother me a whole lot. There are times, though, where I'm like, no, that's just not accurate. Like, what is being said is not true, and it bothers me occasionally. That's with, like, a few thousand people that are involved in the show on a day-to-day basis. There are millions that really care about the St. Louis Cardinals. So for Mo to have that kind of mindset, I think it's almost necessary when you've been in that job as long as he has. That being said, when he says something like that and he says it wouldn't bother me a lot if I were to be fired today, I think for a lot of Cardinals fans, you hear something like that and you say, yeah, he doesn't care the way that he once did. And I need a guy to be in that job that lives and dies every single day with whether or not his team wins or loses. And I think that is where some of this disconnect comes from.
Well, and as we've talked about with Mo in the past, and you know this better than anybody, BK, like tone is a problem. And the cough laugh that he had at the beginning, people hear that and they're like, okay, so he's snarky about it. It's like people probably assume that Mo knows he's good, and he doesn't really care about the criticism that follows him or if he's worried about job security. But, I mean, you have to respect somebody who is at that point. I mean, he's probably also so raw from going through it as long as he has in this business that you become numb to all of the outside noise. You have your inner circle, like Doug Armstrong talks about. That's who you listen to, and you block everything else out. He's a very well-adjusted human being, like you said, and I respect that because everybody deals with some type of mental health problems, and to be able to work in that type of business and handle what he handles, that's a tough thing to have to deal with on a daily basis. But you're also somewhat tone deaf, like we've talked about, to how the fan base views your role with this team.
All right, so the next one up here, again, this is coming from KSDK. Frank Cusimano sit-down interview with John Mozeliak that aired last night on KSDK. You can see the extended version right now on their website. Here's John Mozeliak and how he's able to ignore all of the noise.
Well, most of my family understands not to read things and not to follow social media. I will say, like, it's hard for someone like myself to just say, oh, I can ignore it, because that's impossible. I certainly get the sense that the city is tiring of me, and the vocal minority is getting louder and louder, and the only thing that can change that course is we start playing better.
I think he's right there about basically everything. I do think the city is growing tired of hearing from Mo. I don't know if that's fair or unfair. I think a lot of it, like if we're just criticizing the on-field product, a lot of the criticism is fair, in my opinion. I think some of the off-field stuff gets a little bit into the unfair side of things, but man, when you're the head of baseball operations for 17 years and a town that cares about baseball the way that St. Louis does, and your voice is the one that is being heard, yeah, it's eventually going to get tired. Because let me say this. I remember when Mike Schilt was hired in the first press conference that he had, and he said things that I had heard Mike Matheny say for years, like the exact same things, but he says them in a slightly different way. And it's a new person that's saying them, right? And so you hear it and it hits your ears a little bit differently. You're like, haha, this is the guy that's saying the thing that I've been asking for. And it's like, wait, no, he's doing and saying all of the things that have been said for years. And it's not actually any different. It's just a different person that's the messenger. But sometimes there's value in having a new messenger. And I think some of that is what's happening here, where it's like you just hear the same message from the same person for so long that it gets old for people.
Wow, people should, we just lived it with the Blues. Bannister was saying the exact same thing that Berube was saying. It's just a different person saying it so that you don't have to blame them. I mean, look, like, I don't even think it's people have grown tired of hearing from Mo. I think they're just tired of Mo. They're tired of him being in charge of a team that is so inconsistent. Like, it's consistent in the fact that you know how Mo is going to handle the team, but it's inconsistent in the fact that you know the team is going to be a big question mark in the season. So I don't even think it's a matter of what he says. People are already probably sick of anything that comes out of his mouth. I just think it's more people are sick of John Mozeliak, and that's the case for anybody. If you're working in any business for 17 plus years, you probably assume people are growing tired of you because you're the same person that's showing up every day of the week, and you look at it and you're like, oh, geez, really, this guy again? That's got to be what Mo's going to.
Somebody else on the text line said the comment that got them was the vocal minority part. They said he seems to think it's just a minority of Cardinals fans that are tired of him. I think it's become the majority. Again, that comes from the 314. I think I've felt that over the last year or so as well. I do think it used to be a vocal minority. I think now when you go to the ballpark and you can hear him, the audible boos that are taking place as he walks onto the field, that's different. To me, that's different than it used to be.
It took the turn. I guess it would have been last offseason when he held the press conference and he said payroll's going up and then did the Adam Waite. That's when I really feel like it turned.
That plus the 6 starter comments.
Yeah.
We've got 6.
It took a turn from you have a select few that dislike you to everybody is on board with you needing to be gone.
And you don't win that year. Like, if they win, nobody goes back to that, and, like, there's probably still more of a minority. I think the problem for Mo, I don't think it's so much how he speaks to his tone problem does get under the skin of some people. But I think if they're winning, you don't care. The problem is they're starting to lose, and you're starting to see the pipeline is drying up, which was the whole MO for the Cardinals, and you saw them fall behind under whose watch? John Mozeliak's watch. It used to be they were the one that was ahead of the curve, and it was winning baseball, and it was the Cardinal way. And now it is, well, what is the Cardinal way? Because this doesn't look like what we grew up watching if you're the younger fan base or if you're an older fan base.
I also think the Mike Schilt firing took a massive blow to John Mozeliak, because not only did you fire him, who just won Manager of the Year, but you also just stated philosophical differences and never shed light into why you fired him.
You kept Ollie Marmol after a 90-loss season.
Yep.
And so that
might have been the start of it all.
Schilt going into last year and everything that took place there, and then a lot of fans feeling like Albert saved them in 2021, 2022, whatever.
Yeah.
For them to struggle the way that they did last year. Ollie struggles in game 1, if you want to call it that. The team just crumbling in game 1 of that playoff series, and then that dovetailing into the next season. The 6 starters comment, the payroll comment, and then everything that has taken place since then. Basically, since October of 2022, everything's gone to hell. And I think that's kind of where we're at. All right, the next thing up is on the trades that he gets criticism for.
Uh-oh.
No, it stings, but, if you're not making mistakes, you could also argue you're not trying. right? And so, a lot of the examples you've cited, I'm not sure the stories are completely written there. The one I think you can definitely say was a bad deal was, Sandy and Gallon, because that is what it is. But some of these others, I still think, like Libby could still emerge as being either a frontline starter or an elite reliever, and the ROI on that might end up being, comparable. And, I know we get beat up a lot on Adolis Garcia, but, 28 other teams could have claimed him as well. And even Texas put him on waivers again. And, it's a great story now, but there's a lot in between. And so I think for us, it's like, we wish we had decisions that, everyone we made was perfect, but they're not.
All right. So let me just start out with this. Do you know how good Matthew Liberatore would have to be as a reliever to equal roughly the value of what Randy Arozarena has been for Tampa Bay?
Would he have to be like Andrew Miller in his prime?
He'd have to be worth 11 wins over the next 3 seasons.
I don't even know if Miller was that in his prime.
Now, I know not everybody likes wins above replacement. It's the only thing that you can really point to value pitchers versus
ROI
hitters.
that Mo brought up.
Yeah.
Whatever the hell that is.
Return on investment.
I thought maybe it was some nerdy stat.
Props to BK because he didn't use tone there.
I tried not to.
Even if he did,
I was immediately down.
I deserved that.
I wasn't going to say it.
Liberatore's not a frontline starter. He's not now. He's not going to be. I feel pretty confident in that regard. He might end up being a middle to back end of the rotation starter. That's being super optimistic, but maybe he becomes that.
You just wait till he gets to San Francisco.
He could absolutely become a high leverage reliever. I think he's already that, honestly. And there's no chance that is similar ROI, return on investment, to what Randy Arozarena.
That was a tone. See, when you circle back to it, that's a jerk move.
Mo 2.0.
That being said,
tired of this voice.
I actually do agree with him on a couple of points here. I know we're not allowed to do that because it's Mo and people don't like him, but what I do agree with, I don't think it's fair the way that people have reacted to the Adolis Garcia stuff. Man, he ended up going to Texas for basically a bag of balls, and Texas said, this guy stinks. We don't want him on our 40-man roster anymore. We're going to DFA him as well. Every team in Major League Baseball had an opportunity to claim him. None of them did. He goes back down to the minor leagues and eventually becomes an unbelievable player for the Texas Rangers. Everybody whiffed on Adolis Garcia. Literally every single team in Major League Baseball. So that one I'm just going to set off to the side. I also don't like the way that they get criticized for the Marcell Ozuna trade. It's worked out as poorly as any trade ever could. But I like that they were aggressive. I think the problem with the Marcell Ozuna trade is that they have become less aggressive because of it. I thought Mo had a moment there where he had an out-of-body experience where he said, well, I think you could criticize us for not trying if we didn't have these losses in trades. Yes, absolutely. And that's what's happened. Since that deal, I think they've become less aggressive in making other significant moves unless they feel like they got a smashing success of a deal. Like Arenado, big deal. Everybody agreed they won that one. Yeah. Goldie, big deal. There wasn't a single person that you could find that'd be like, Arizona pulled one over on the Cardinals there. No, it's Paul Goldschmidt. So when they make those kinds of deals, sure. But otherwise, I think they have really reined in the trades in part because they don't want to have that kind of a mistake again.
Yeah, my problem isn't the trade that you made. My problem is you stopped trying to make trades. Yeah. That's the problem for John Mozeliak because you had ample opportunities from the moment the Marcell Ozuna thing didn't work out up until where we're at now that you could have made a move. But you said, nope, we're going to bank on our prospects, and that did not pan out for you.
Yeah, and that's where I am. Is that everything he said in there I'm totally with, except for where's the aggressiveness that you're talking about? You said, you can be critical of us, but, hey, we would say, well, we're being aggressive and we're trying. Well, I haven't really seen that side of you since that trade went down. So where's that at? We talked about it. Dylan Cease, Chris Sale, if you want to call that being aggressive, being creative, either one works for me, but you haven't really seen that side from John Mozeliak and the Cardinals since these deals have gone so sideways.
And I do think it really comes down to evaluating the players that you have and evaluating the players that you're trading for, because that's where it's really burned to the Cardinals of thinking, oh, this guy is going to be what he just was last year, whereas sometimes there's the evaluation that goes deeper into what this projects to look like, and that's where the Cardinals fall short.
All right, last one here, and we'll get to some more of these on the other side as well, on whether or not he's heard from the DeWitts and what those conversations have been like this year.
I have spoken to Bill. He understands that, tensions are rising. He understands expectations are still real. But there's some things that you are where you are. I mean, like, for example, like when you lose Contreras, I mean, you're not going to just go out and be able to, like, find a middle of the order bat and just plug and play. It's, early May or mid-May. And so those are just difficult things when you lose a player of that caliber. Now, the interesting thing is our catch hitters have actually stepped up, and, we're still getting production out of that position. So, it really comes back to the rest of the group and what we're going to look like.
You can't use Wilson Contreras as the example there. While Steven Matz has been injured for 3 consecutive seasons, and you sit on your hands and say, we've got depth. That was a tone-deaf problem. Of course you don't know what to do. Of course you can't make a move with Wilson Contreras. And yeah, I can point to, oh, look, Ivan Herrera's hitting. Point to the pitchers.
Yeah, I think that's just a bad look.
And
there's no way around it. Like, it's a bad look. You get out of here. I don't want to hear it.
The whole thing of like, you
Ivan Herrera.
You can't make these moves and like make. Everybody watched Luis Ariz flip teams in April, right? Yeah, you can make these trades, and I don't think anybody walked out of that trade going they gave up a ton.
Every team in Major League Baseball has an injury. Every single one of them. Every one of
Cardinals
them.
just have 7 of them.
And they have 2, literally 2 that are of significance. Like
Riley O'Brien, your boy.
Well,
and Keenan Middleton,
Jordan
and
Walker's
Tommy
hurt.
Edman.
It's just his ego. He's got to get fixed.
Like all of these teams are dealing with injuries, all of them. And the Cardinals are like, yeah, but our injury's more important. Our injuries to our catcher that was hitting. Sure, but nobody else was hitting. That was the problem. It wasn't that Wilson Contreras got hurt. It was that literally every other player on the roster had been terrible offensively so far that season. Like that's why you got put into the position that you're currently in. So I don't know that I can like specifically criticize Mo for this lineup. I was the one that was saying all offseason, I like the lineup that they have assembled here. But I thought that answer was a BK tone problem.
Someone brought up a great point. Just another opportunity to take a shot at Wilson Contreras. Any chance Mo can get, just keep driving over that dude. Come on, man.
Coming up next, more from John Mozeliak here on 101 ESPN.
BK, we've got a Game 7 tonight, Edmonton, Vancouver, and I've already made my big game parlay on our Circa Sports Illinois app. Why? Because I want to bring in the most money possible. Wait till you hear these odds, BK. 4 picks. I'm taking the Oilers -1.5. I think they got this easy. I'm saying it's under 5.5 goals, a tight game, and I'm picking 2 goal scorers, Connor McDavid and JT Miller. You know what my odds are on the Circa app? Plus 97.50. Over on the DraftKings app, plus 92.50.
I want to win the most money possible. I want to win all of the money possible, and the place to do so is over on the Circa Sports app in the state of Illinois. The largest sports book in Las Vegas is now available at your fingertips in Illinois. Download the app today. This is the way that sports betting was supposed to be. You can shop around. They recommend you do that, in fact. Go check FanDuel. Go check DraftKings. Check around all over. You're going to find that the best odds are available for you over on the Circa Sports app in the state of Illinois. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, we're reacting to the interview that John Mozeliak did last night. He did it with KSDK, Frank Cusimano. Check it all out on their website, KSDK's website. They've got the full extended version of it over there. I think it's well worth your time, the entirety of it. He was pretty revealing, open, and honest. John Mozeliak was asked from Frank Cusimano about what he regrets over the past 2 off seasons. I thought this was an interesting answer, Alex.
Back to the offseason of 22 to 23, and we should have added some pitching. Like we kind of thought that some of the bets we were hedging on were long shots, and they ended up proving to be just that. And so I certainly regret that. And as I look at our current club now, I think there might have been some other things we could have done a little bit more creatively for our offense. But at the time, we felt like all these guys, what they did last year, we just assumed that they would be taking a step forward this year, and unfortunately that hasn't happened to date.
Okay. So, first,
Somebody should have helped them with that answer.
I think what he said about last offseason is just objectively true. They messed up. They didn't get enough pitching. They said publicly, we've got 6 starters. And then they really had like 3. And they did make some significant bets on injured guys or guys that were coming off of down seasons, and they needed all of them to hit, and it didn't work out.
But once again, you don't know how to evaluate your own players. Like you said in the answer, we took long shots on guys. You shouldn't be taking long shots on guys if you're trying to compete.
I don't have a problem with taking long shots, but you should take like 1. They took like 3 last season.
Yeah, and I appreciate the fact that he's willing to admit that as much, but he should have said it at the time. And I know you don't want to say that as a president of baseball operations because you're like, well, I'm going to go out there and like take a shot at my team. Fair, but
might fire him up.
You could just be honest and be like, hey, listen, we understand that what we're doing is a gamble. We believe that the gamble is worth what we're trying here because Jack Flaherty we think has #1 upside. If he doesn't hit, then we're going to be wrong, and we're going to end up not being the team that we think that we can be. Steven Matz, we think he can be the guy that we signed him to be. Like they took a bunch of shots last year and missed on all of them. We all know that story, though. What he said about this offseason, I wonder what he means by that, Alex. He said, I wish we would have gotten more creative with this offseason and potentially adding to the offense.
Oh, wow.
How? Like, could it have been something like that where he's saying, hey, we could have used our surplus position players to acquire a pitcher via trade and then go external to sign like a Jock Peterson, Tommy Fan, like just that random outfielder that can maybe cover for some of the lack of I don't know what he meant by that, but I would have liked to have heard a follow-up question on what that would have looked like, and I don't even know that he would have answered it, but I found that answer to be really interesting.
Can I give you a tinfoil?
Sure.
Which, absolute tinfoil. I wonder, truth serum, if he's talking about trading Nolan Arenado in the offseason.
I don't know how that would have upgraded their offense, though.
You're trading him. I don't either, but you're trading him to update your pitching, and then you're signing somebody in the offseason. Maybe it would have just been Chapman, but I don't think that would have upgraded it significantly. But, like, there weren't a lot of guys on the free agent market that you would have looked at and you said...
It was a terrible market offensively.
I mean, Chapman
it had to have
been
been a trade, but, like, who were the guys that got traded offensively that would have really significantly improved?
You're talking about Luis Arraez, but...
that was just recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what he was referring to there. I don't know if that was trading possession players and bringing in free agents like that. Maybe that is what it was. And, like, you can look at whether that was trading an young outfielder and going signing someone, or, maybe JD Martinez comes in as a DH and you clear up that spot a little bit. But I don't know what he's referencing to that. To me, that was hey, there's one young player, and I don't know who it is that he's referring to, but there is one young player that we kind of feel like we should, I don't know if I want to say give up on, but not put him in that spot to be a starting player for us. Whether that is I don't think it's Gorman because he's still here, and he said publicly, hey, he's not going down. Like, Gorman is here, sink or swim. The only guy I can think of would be center field and Victor Scott, which at the time he wasn't even the starter in the offseason. But then Jordan Walker. And surely they're not giving up on Walker that soon. That's why that comment is so puzzling as to what he's referring to, because if you're talking about what we're saying, where it is trade somebody to get pitching, I would think you would be talking about it as a creative move to get a starter, not so much looking at what that means for the offense.
Unless maybe he's talking about being aggressive at the time and going after Juan Soto. I mean,
he wasn't. I don't think that, like, not this year. That would have been a while ago. So that wouldn't have been this offseason.
But maybe that's the creativity you were talking
I
about.
don't think they had the package to get him because they were looking for pitching, and the Cardinals don't have pitching.
Yeah.
So
Maybe that's the creativity, though, of trading something away from your roster to get pitching and
at this
flipping
point,
it.
I'm open to all options because
There just wasn't anybody out there
don't
that
know what he's
updates it.
talking about. Like, what could you have done? And maybe it's getting creative to make something happen, right? Like where a guy wasn't available until you offered something that blew them out of the water, and they're like, okay, well, we got to do. I don't know. I genuinely have no idea, but it begged more questions than answers for me. Because if he said, hey, I wish we would have gotten more creative and to your point, Alex, to add another starter. Sure, we all said that in the offseason. That was a first guess, not a second guess. This one, it seemed a little puzzling to me, but I found it to be really interesting.
Maybe
All right.
he wanted Ohtani.
Ooh.
He was then asked
No? Okay.
about the state of the Cardinals farm system.
Oh, this will be good.
I think you're going to find this to be interesting, Alex.
When you look at what's happening at the major league level right now in teams that are going through that rebuild, they tend to have picks in the top 5 for many years in a row. And obviously we're trying to avoid that. We're trying to remain competitive at the major league level, but also, still producing minor league players to be ultimately big league players. And I do think our farm system is maybe a little stronger than people think. So I'm encouraged what we're seeing down below.
Okay, well, now this goes back to the first answer of why, you feel like people are ready for the tenure to end with Mo. That's false. I mean, that's false security there of thinking like people aren't giving us enough credit for how strong our system is.
That's not the part that bothers me. The part that bothers me is the very beginning of, oh, hey, we didn't have high draft picks.
Yep.
You know what that is?
Well, that's an excuse. It's an excuse. Well,
and you know what? Who makes excuses? Losing organizations. Like that's a terrible look. I don't want to hear about, oh, well, we had to draft 16, 20. How could we possibly pick a good player? Guys, I see the Milwaukee Brewers have been drafting in the same spot as you, and they're kicking your ass right now. Look at where they're sitting in the standings. They don't have that problem. That was a terrible look for John Mozeliak, in my opinion. That's the part that frustrated me more. I don't care about what he said, how the system is currently, because I expect a Popo. Any Popo is going to say, our minor league depth is looking good. We really are high on the people that are in our system. I expect that. The front part, that was an excuse, and that's what got under my skin.
Yeah, Bobby Miller was drafted in the first round by the Dodgers. Dustin May was drafted in the third round by the Dodgers. If you want to go continue beyond that, and other guys, again, by the Dodgers, who are drafting after or around where the Cardinals are in recent seasons. They got Will Smith in the first round as well. It doesn't seem to be bothering them. They seem to be, Walker Buehler, they seem to be doing pretty well. Drafting where you are, developing players,
and see, like, I honestly, that answer was kind of par for the course for me. I expected Mo to have that answer. That we draft late. What do you expect? That seems to be the go-to.
It's not an acceptable answer. It's not acceptable.
I get it, but the second part of that one pissed me off more because you guys may say, well, I expect a Povo to say it. Fine. I actually believe Mo believes that. It goes back to the opening day comment that he made.
I believe Mo believes what you're talking about.
Probably believes all of this, which is the most infuriating part. But like, if you seriously,
I think every president of baseball operations believes their farm system is better than what the national consensus believes it is, because they're your guys. Alex, if you invest in something, you're going to be more into that investment than anybody else on the outside. Your fantasy team, you care more about your fantasy football team than anybody else will. Imagine if your fantasy team was your livelihood and that livelihood paid you $10 million a year to be the head of a baseball operations. But that's how Mo views his farm system.
Fine, but the good Pobos, they recognize like, hey, our system is depleted. Even if we feel like we've got pieces, we need to upgrade them. And I don't believe he views it that way. I believe he views it as, oh, we're good. We got plenty of guys in the system, which is part for me that was kind of like, okay, well, this is the problem here.
Well, then he was asked about prospects that he believes can go on to become significant contributors at the big league level. Once again, following up on the minor league system that they have currently, here's what he had to say.
I think somebody like Tink Hens has a chance to do that. I think Roberts has a chance to be a really good starting pitcher. I think Sajasi is someone that really understands how to hit, and I definitely think he's going to be an impact bat at some point. And I think we have some catching prospects coming up as well. And so it's a nice blend of what you're seeing in our system. Now, we've got to hit on some pitching. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And when you look back at the last 15, 20 years, we were getting guys that were contributing to our rotation. And I think that's the most important part we have to focus on moving forward.
You were the one that was critical of him in the last answer. I'm curious how you heard that one.
mean, he said all of the ones that you fully expect him to say, but it was the end part of it. Now we have to hit on these guys, and I think that's part of the reason why Chaim Bloom is here, because they recognize, like, hey, this is my last hurrah to hit on these players. But the first comment that bugged me compared to that one is he feels like the system is set with this stretch of guys that are going to impact the major league club. But as we've seen with the Cardinals, they've got guys that aren't impacting to the same level that they need them to impact, if that makes sense. I feel like I'm confusing myself here.
Same.
I'm not totally sure I'm
He's
following.
naming 3 guys that, are your top prospects, but those are 3 guys that aren't expected to change the outlook of your
so
team.
you're saying they're not producing superstars?
Yeah, and he's evaluating them like they're superstars.
I don't think he did. I mean, he was asked, hey, do you think there are guys that are expected to be significant contributors at the big league level? And he said, these are the 3 guys that I think can.
Thomas Ajayce is expected to be an impact bat.
I think he is.
I mean, I'd view impact bat like a Jordan Walker. I view Thomas Ajayce as a complementary piece.
Yeah, well, impact bat, I guess everybody has a different definition of what that means. Like, I think Thomas Ajayce should come up and be like a 270 hitter that gives you 15 bombs a year.
And I don't think they're planning on him to hit, like, cleanup.
Yeah,
I don't think that's his role. Like,
agreed. Maybe we're interpreting it very differently, clearly, Alex. And so, like, I didn't have an issue with anything necessarily that he said there. My interpretation of that was what T-Bone had to say earlier today as well. We were on the same wavelength as this. When the first pitcher that he mentions, not named Tink Hence, is now Sim Robersa, it explains to me why he hasn't been called up.
yeah.
You cannot hinder the development of the second best pitcher, according to John Mozeliak, currently in your system. You can't bring that guy up if you think he's not ready for it. You have to wait. You have to be patient with him and say, we're going to give this thing some time. And the problem is not so much like what they're doing with Sim Robersa. It's that they have no alternatives.
Yeah.
That's the problem for the Cardinals right now. So when I heard him say that, I was like, wow, that, first of all, is a surprising name to mention compared to what we thought they were getting at the deadline last year. He would not have been my first choice, but it's why you go out and acquire. You do the shotgun style where you're just getting spraying it all over. Let's get 6 pitchers and hopefully one of them ends up working out. And the one that works out is oftentimes not the one that you expected it to be. Sim Robersa might end up becoming that guy.
Yeah, and I think that's why, to your point, why we're not seeing him is because they want him to be in AAA, and I think they want him there to eat 150 innings this year. They want him to work at AAA. I wouldn't be shocked if we don't see him this season after those comments. And what it does show to me is just what he said about how they got to start churning through some pitching prospects and get some depth up through that minor league system. He talked about, well, how did we have success? Well, we were developing pitching. That's their formula to success. They have got to start developing pitching. So he said the part that I want to hear, and I'm not shocked that he said Tink Hence. I'm not surprised that he said Thomas Ajayce, because really he's the only guy that I think you can point to right now that's close. Roberse was one that was a little surprising to me, but I think they bring up his name because that was him essentially saying, hey, don't be surprised if you don't see him. We've got to figure out that number 5 spot. It's not going to be Roberse this season because we've got to develop him so he can be our number 6 or 7 next season for the Cardinals when they are ready to kind of revamp their depth when they go into the offseason.
He's Tanner Hendrickson. That's Alex Ferrario. I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up next, we're going to play a game of In or Out. By the way, that audio all courtesy of KSDK, Frank Cusimano with the great one-on-one interview with John Mozeliak. So check that all out over at their website. In or Out coming up next.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends over at Classic Air Care. Now that we're starting to get that humid weather here in St. Louis, now's the time to make sure your HVAC system is ready to go for the summer. So you need to call Classic Air Care. Just had them out last week to do my tune-up, my maintenance program that I'm a part of, where they come out, they clean my system, they check it, they fine-tune it, and make sure I'm good to go for the summer. I've been doing it since I've owned a home in 2016, and I haven't had to purchase a new HVAC system. It's like
28 years old, but Classic Air Care takes such good care of me. The customer service is at its all-time best with them. If you don't believe me, you could see their 4.8 rating and thousands of positive reviews up on Google Reviews. They have knowledgeable technicians. They're always there to help you. So give them a call today. Tell them Alex Ferrario sent you, and they will come out and take care of you and your HVAC system. They've been making people comfortable since 1926. Check them out online, classicaircare.com.
Terry Hendricks here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals back in action tonight as they start a 3-game set with the Baltimore Orioles. Sonny Gray will get the start for St. Louis. First pitch is at 6:45. The Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
All right, a quick version of in or out today.
That one was
Anthony
bad.
Beck's coming up at 2:15. Charles Barkley at 2:45, all on the fast lane. Guys, in or out? Jason Tatum will become the face of the NBA if his Celtics are able to win the title this year.
I'd say in. I'm trying to think. I mean, Jokic was the face of the NBA after they won it last year. I would say in because I feel like he's already in the top 5 conversation, and if you win it,
I think the current face is still LeBron, if I'm being honest.
well, I mean, you love
Despite him
LeBron,
not
so
being
we
the,
get it.
the best player in the league anymore, I think he's still the face of the league.
Yeah.
And then Curry.
I'd agree with that.
I think Tatum's on Curry level if you win the NBA title in terms of like when he started to become the hot commodity in the NBA.
Yeah, I would say out because I don't know if he becomes the face because it's going to be hard to replace Steph and LeBron.
Yep.
But he'll definitely be in that conversation. He probably needs 2 titles before he starts to get into that conversation to become the face of the league.
Totally agree. They should be the overwhelming favorite right now, though. There's nobody else that should be like. This is the year for the Celtics to finally break through. They've got the team to do it. Everything has broke their way. They should make quick work of the Pacers. Sorry, T-Bone. Congratulations to your guys for making the Eastern Conference Finals. And I like the Mavericks. I like the Timberwolves. Neither of those two teams are on the level of this Celtics team.
You're more an NBA guy than me. I don't find these conference finals all that compelling. I don't find that matchup in the West that it's going to be fun, but
if you're like a big time like super into basketball, it has the potential to be a really, really fun matchup. I think the Eastern Conference Final stinks. I think it's terrible.
I'd agree.
But I think the Western Conference Finals has a chance to be really good. So I don't think he will be the face. I'm out on this. I think he needs 2 of them to get to that place. I don't think there is currently a face of the NBA post-Steph, post-LeBron. I think that is up for grabs currently with Luka, Jokic, Anthony Edwards. I think is going to be in that category. I think he's got the personality to be able to do it. But all of these guys are kind of in the same level to me. T-Bone, or Alex, what do you got for us?
In or out, guys, when Jordan Walker returns to the Cardinals within the next couple of weeks, because that bobblehead night's coming up real quick, he never goes back to AAA again.
In. I think it will be sink or swim at that point. This is your last time doing this.
I'd agree with that. I'd say I'm in because at some point you got to figure it out. He gets called back up here. It's because he's got confidence. And I don't think you can continue to send him up and down. Like next year, there's no reason for him to go to AAA. He'll be at the spot Gorman's in right now where they've basically said, sink or swim, and we'll figure out if you're a franchise pillar or not.
Yeah, I'm kind of there as well. I even if you want to send him back down, I don't think PR-wise you could send him back down. You have to find out who he is.
Guys, in or out, the next time we get to Libby's current spot in the rotation, it will be started by someone from outside the organization currently.
I'm in. I think this is going to be... I think it's going to be Brad Keller. I think they're going to make the move. We'll see what it looks like. They'll make a couple announcements today, it sounds like, for roster moves. Ryan Lutos is expected to be one of those. But I think they're going to end up getting Brad Keller. I think it's the smart move by them. They've got to have somebody else to start.
Apparently the Astros are interested in Eric Lauer, they're reporting.
That makes sense.
So I'm going to say out.
I would rather have Keller than Lauer for what it's worth.
I'm going to say out. I think they're going to keep it internal. They're just going to keep chugging guys along until Matz is available, or they'll get Zach Thompson back up to par.
I'm going to say in just because I don't want to see Thompson or Palante forced into that spot. I hope it's Keller. If they did Lauer, I would understand what they're doing because he just opted out of his minor league deal, so it makes sense.
He's T-Bone, that's Alex on BK. Coming up next, we'll hit the rewind here on 101 ESPN. We're going to get out a little bit early today because coming up at 2:15, the Fast Lane, we'll talk to Battlehawks head coach Anthony Becht. Charles Barkley will join them at 2:45. So 2 big-time interviews in the 2 o'clock hour. I'm sure they'll be talking Blues and Cardinals as well. Plenty to come from 2 to 6 on the Fast Lane. You can hang out with BK and Ferrario and Circa Sports Illinois on Friday and Saturday at Max in downtown Alton, Illinois. We're going back, boys. Come watch the biggest rivalry in baseball. Chicago takes on St. Louis, and you can enjoy epic complimentary food as well. Plus, download and fund the Circa Sports Illinois app to receive exclusive merchandise. All happening Friday from 5 to 7 and Saturday from 4 to 6. I'll be there on Friday with Alex. T-Bone will be there on Saturday. Circa Sports at Max in downtown Alton, Illinois. All the details can be found at 101ESPN.com. All right, boys, we said at the beginning of the show today, we're all in wait-and-see mode with the Cardinals. We all like what we've seen from them over their last 7 games in which they're 5-2, but you're going to have to do more than have a 7-game solid stretch after what we saw for the mess of the first 39 games in which you were 15-24. What are you expecting them out of tonight? Sonny Gray on the mound, Alex.
I think I'm expecting a little bit more of what they did against the Milwaukee Brewers against this one, because this is a competent World Series contender, unlike what the Red Sox and the Angels were. I think you're going to get slapped back down to earth a little bit in this series.
I think Sonny Gray can set the tone for them tonight. Hopefully your offense can kind of hold serve with that. See if you can jump Baltimore early, try and win this one. They win this one, I think they can take 2 or 3 from Baltimore. That's where I sit with them. Against the Cubs, we'll go from there once we get to that point. But I think tonight.
Got to be your win day. It's got to be win day for the Cardinals because you have Sonny Gray on the mound. You signed him for this game. You're getting some momentum. You need him to carry it for you. It's the old adage of you have as much momentum as your next day starter. Well, your next day starter right now is Sonny Gray. That makes you feel good when you go to the ballpark later on this afternoon if you're in Ollie Marmol's shoes. So I think the Cardinals will be super competitive in this game. I think they do find a way to win. The lefty bats, I said it over the weekend, they're what you're building around right now. You feel good about it. Hopefully they come home with a win, and we'll be able to break that all down for you tomorrow here on BK and Ferrario. For Alex, great to have him back. And T-Bone on BK. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. Again, Anthony Becht at 2:15, Charles Barkley at 2:45 coming up on the Fast Lane here on 101 ESPN.